And this is what we're gonna do. So everybody, we are gonna go over and start our new episode of Ship Show. This one all about the Dockyard ships. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Clyde, and of course today we are here to host an episode of what I call Ship Show. It's a long form podcast style video about World of Warships. With me in the studio is Skada. Skada, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Yeah. If you're watching this with us live on Twitch, we'd love for you to be interactive and help us out by saying stuff. We'll put that in the chat box right here above my head. We'll try to keep our eyes on that as we go throughout, and we'll talk with you guys about things. And of course, we will also answer comments in the YouTube's comments section later on if you're watching this on YouTube. So if there's something in here that sparks an idea and you want to chat with us, we'll try to watch those comments over there as well. Now, Skada, a long time ago, like a year ago, you said, hey, dude, we should do a ship show about the Dockyard. Do you want to, I guess, talk about why we think that's interesting? What's cool about talking about the Dockyard ships?
Well, I'll tell you what, we do ship show. For those out there who have watched this before, we do coal ship shows like once or twice a year. We do steel ship shows. We do research bureau ship shows. And I want to do Dockyard ships under this format because about a year ago, I don't know, Puerto Rico was back. It was coming through for the second time, and it might have been around the time that we got an inkling that they were going to start putting Dockyard ships into Christmas crates. And so Dockyard ships tend not to be available ever again. And so the first year of Dockyard ships, minus the Puerto Rico, I believe, had made its way into Christmas crates. And so I was like, hey, look, there's some availability. People are going to start getting these again. Let's do a ship show. And you're like, okay, when should we do it? And I was like, let's do it during the next Dockyard. And then the Schroder Dockyard came and went, and it was like Christmas time, and we just didn't do it. I think we did a steel show.
Yeah, when around
we
December.
usually do a steel show.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll just throw that. Around December is when the steel coupon comes back. So we usually try to prioritize that so that we're talking about, you know, the ships that you guys are most interested in at the time you're most interested in them. So that was what happened during the Schroder Dockyard, right? And so, of course, we rolled into 2023.
It's all about the algorithm, right? And so then the next Dockyard came around, and it was the Daisen. And I said, hey, are we going to do that thing? And you're like, well, you know, it's been 3 months since we did the steel one. It's time we did the coal video. And so we did a coal ship show. And that's what we did. And then I was like, okay, seriously, the next Dockyard, can we do this one? And you're like, I see no reason we can. And
actually,
so,
what you said was, I will not be part of another ship show unless it's the Dockyard one next. You threatened me, and I said, no, you're right, let's do it. No,
you're right. That's how it went down. And then he was like, fine, I'll fire you, and I'll bring in Foaming Jetty to do these with me. And then
whoa, that never happened.
They did, that happened, and it was about matchmaking, and now we're back and we're doing this. So
now that was a fireside chat. We talked about this.
So yeah, we're finally doing this one. And is it relevant to anyone? Probably not. But it was a set of ships that are of a like distribution method, and we hadn't talked about them, and I thought it would be fun.
No, I think this is a great topic, and one of the reasons why it's probably a little bit odd is because, like you said at the beginning, historically there's been no way to get these ships if you missed out on them the first time around, right? If you didn't do Puerto Rico the first time, you were never going to get Puerto Rico. And then they did a Puerto Rico Dockyard, right? A second one, right? And we'll talk, and you can see the list of Dockyards right over here over my shoulder. And then, you know, if you didn't do the Odin Dockyard or whatever, you were never going to get Odin. And then it showed up in a Santa crate, right? And so I think right now is a really interesting time to talk about these ships, not just because of the ships themselves. I think, you know, when we do a coal ship show, a lot of people are using that or participating in that, whether they're watching here with us on Twitch or they're watching on YouTube. They're going and saying, what do people think about these boats? And they go watch a segment. Maybe they watch a couple of different YouTubes on videos on the ship. Or they go to their favorite streamer and they go, hey, will you play this boat and tell me about it? You know, I want to know if it's worth my hard-earned coal. And so, like, you know, that was never really a thing for Dockyard ships. And now there's weird ways where they're starting to become available for people to get in other alternative routes. It's not consistent. It's not something you can count on, but it could happen again. And so that's kind of interesting. And then, of course, also right now we've got the Lushun Dockyard that's happening. And so people are thinking about Dockyards. It just seems like an interesting conversation to have. And I think that, you know, when we look to the future, there may be times for us to talk about doing a ship show about something else, about tech line ships or about super ships, or heaven forbid about submarines, you know, something like that.
I do believe on the docket, other than the normal ones we do, is a super ship one. We've talked about doing that.
Yeah.
Just because, and the thing of that is that they keep putting them out.
Faster
so the
than
longer
we can buy them.
the longer that we wait, the longer this conversation will have to be, which is
Yeah.
going to be a detriment to us. But yeah, they keep putting them out, and we keep putting that conversation up. And then we have also talked about, I guess it would be a ship show, but we've talked about doing a thing where we finally break down and go, look, submarines are here and they're never going away. Let's talk about them.
Yeah.
And that one might be fun to do too. And I think I would suggest we do that one like the next time they introduce a new tech line of submarines.
Yeah, and you know, that's one where, you know, you and I have talked about this a bunch, where neither one of us feel like we have necessarily the submarine expertise. You know, I've played about 100 battles or 80 battles in subs. You've probably played a little bit more than that, but like, you know, when we look at that topic, you know, it's one that I think is probably due. Like, there are probably humans who are looking for that information, and the rest of us are trying to find out which subs are the scariest so we can avoid them, right? So like, I think it's useful for a couple of different kinds of folks, but
anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Brand is angry that we're not talking about Dockyard Ships.
Yeah,
so,
Brand's like, get started. So what I have over
edit
here,
all of this out, just jump straight to this for Brand on YouTube.
This is like the pre-chatter. It's a thing.
You're lucky that we're not talking about the weather or lawn care tips. We're old.
I had to resharpen my lawnmower blades the other day.
I got this new liniment.
So Pac Manley says, you know what, though? I own a few of these boats and I never play them. So maybe I've been missing out because I've just forgotten about them. I'm talking about some of the ships that Pac Manley has: Anchorage, Hizen, and Daisen. We're going to talk about all three of those tonight. What I've got over here is a list of the dockyards and when they happened. And then beyond this, I've got some more information. So this was really just kind of like, hey, here's a look at the list of ships. We can come back and refer to this table at any time, but I wanted to just put that up there. And I've taken some of this data, I've distilled it down into some, you know, some fast facts on another page, which we'll take a look at here. But one thing I'll call out here is that all of the dockyards have been for tier 8, 9, or 10 ships. They may have had some midpoint ships of other tiers, and we'll talk about those as we go through today as well. Although we're not going to talk about every single midpoint ship in in major detail. Lots of 8s, 9s, and 10s, which has been kind of the thing for dockyards. And then we're seeing things like Battle Pass will soon TM will have its second premium ship at the end of the premium side of the Battle Pass, right? So those have been tier 7 ships, which I think is kind of interesting. It's not a dockyard, but it's kind of similar in nature. And one of the interesting things about what a dockyard is, and we've talked about this a lot, Scott, is it's just a big progress bar, but it's like beautiful, right? It's just a really cool way to visualize.
It's the most delightful the most delightful visualization to a grind that you've ever seen. If you're into watching this, it's just a different way than going into the menu to look at how long it's going to take to do some missions. You just get a little visual representation of it.
Yeah, and I remember when the first dockyard happened, I was like, dude, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, this was so cool. And my brain initially just said, whoever did this should get a huge raise. And then secondly, like, this is such a neat idea. I can't believe nobody's thought of this before. And of course, here we are 10, 12 dockyards later. And we're like, oh, now we just think of it as a progress bar and as a grind. Like, it's not quite so stunning for us as veteran players who've been around here for all of the dockyards. But, you know, for a new player to show up and they're like, what's a dockyard? Oh, rad. People are still having that experience that we had back in 2019 when they're newer to the game. So I still think the dockyards are a really cool thing. I'm glad Wargaming does them. And then the other thing I'll point out about a dockyard, and I say this constantly, is, you know, people talk about how, oh, you can grind for a free ship or whatever. Well, you grind for a cheaper ship. It's a reduced price. It's basically, I'm going to do this big old grind with this really beautiful progress bar, and at the end I get a discount on a premium ship. Because you still have to pay. You got to buy a few phases at the end of each one. The current dockyard for the Lushun, you have to buy 5 phases. And the cheapest way to do it is to buy the 7,000 doubloon booster pack or starter pack. Costs about $28 US. You can, of course, buy the stages independently, and I think that costs like $39 or something. So And that's a tier 10 ship, which normally carries a price of like 100. What are those? 140 bucks, 130 bucks, something like that. So that's about how much discount you're looking at. Yeah.
Don't buy tier 10 ships, folks.
Don't buy them for cash.
Tier 10 ships should be like steel and research. Yeah, but if from when we're recording this soon, there will be an Arpeggio Blue Steel event, and I bet you'll be able to buy the Arpimato again, and it'll probably, how much was that? Like 140 bucks? Like stupid expensive.
Yeah. Well,
and so tier 10 boats are very expensive if you buy them with dollars.
Right. So to try to get them for free or for reduced price is good, right? Like, for example, when Malta came out, for about a month, you could buy it for 140-ish bucks, and then you could get it for $0 in coal, right? And so, that's the kind of thing where you want to understand how those boats are being released and how you're going to be able to get them, because you can do it way cheaper. And the dockyard here with the Lushun is an option if you think Lushun seems right for you. Let's jump to our next little picture here. So this is just like some metrics about the dockyard. I kind of spoiled some of this already, but when we look at these tables, I've got a mains side, which is the main ship, and I've got a midpoints side, which is the right-hand side of the table. And those are like the little ships that are in the middle. And we've had 2 tier 10 ships, technically 3 if you count Puerto Rico twice, 5 tier 9 ships, and 4 tier 8 ships. And then the midpoint ships have been mostly 7s. We've had 3 7s with a 6, a 5, and a 2. We've never had an aircraft carrier in the dockyard, which is interesting but perhaps unsurprising due to their more niche popularity. And never a submarine. Do you think they'll ever do a submarine or a CV in the dockyard?
I don't know. I mean, we're finally to the place where they're doing a second destroyer. I would contend that the selection of dockyard ships, they want as many people to take part in the dockyard as possible. And I think they look at what players play, and players, I don't think play, they're doing battleships and they're doing cruisers for a reason.
Right.
But anything's possible.
So too.
I mean,
well, we got our first steel submarine too. Like Gato came out, right? Steel sub? Get out of here. But how many Gatos do you see, right? You see them all the time.
Quite a few. I see one every time I log in my port.
There's at least one that you see each time. Helmet said Daisen was an exception to the price because the stages you got with Battle Pass counted as purchased stages, so that you only had to buy 2. That's interesting, Helmet. I didn't realize that. But I guess that means that you kind of got to double count the money you spent on the Battle Pass.
Yeah. So that's if you bought the Battle Pass and then you actually played, right? Like, you didn't get those just for buying the Battle Pass. You had to finish that Battle Pass. They were the high high side
prize.
Reward.
Yeah. And you had to like finish the dockyard grind too. So like you were probably grinding both of those things, which you could do simultaneously, which is kind of nice.
Botanica asks a good
ahead.
question there. Just saying, just questioning on the difficulty of the dockyard grind. Is it okay-ish for a new player? Yeah. I mean, I would contend if you're a new player, depending on how much you play, like any grind in this game, it can be grueling. And we call them a grind because it's a grind. That said, when you don't have a lot of variations in your port, if you're new and you only have a few tech tree ships and not very many things over tier 5, it can get tiresome to try to grind things when you can't tilt the grind in your favor, because let's say there's a mission for getting fires in cruisers and you only have a couple of tech lines and you don't have a good cruiser line with something that starts fires, you might have a hard time with that. But I would say for newer players, I don't know if I would buy a booster. I think you should just lean in and see how far you get in the dockyard, and then you can make a determination if it's up to you, if you want to buy stages near the end. I mean, no matter what, if you don't buy into it, the dockyard's going to happen for 2 months. And so you're going to be knocking out missions probably in that time frame if you're playing, and that's great because that's just free stuff.
Yeah,
even if it's just stuff. Even if all you get is the econ bonuses and you only get 20 of the phases done, you got 20 phases of free stuff that you weren't going to get before. You didn't pay anything for it. It just happened, and that's handy because there tends to be, and I say that thinking maybe less of the current dockyard, but there tends to be good stuff available in there that even if you don't pay for the boat.
Well, and one thing that's neat about those dockyard missions is, and I haven't like measured this or counted it, but it feels like all of those missions are in addition to all of the missions they already have. I don't feel like they cut back on the other missions to put out a dockyard. And so as a result of that, it really is just more stuff for the same playing that you're already doing. And I know that when the dockyard was new, I should say, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do these dockyards. And I did not complete the first one for the Puerto Rico because that was really grueling.
It was brutal.
It was brutal. That was hard. And Wargaming dialed every subsequent dockyard back from that. They made them all easier than that one, I think. And I did do the next ones, but the first couple that I did exactly the strategy you just laid out, which is, hey, I'm going to see how far I get. Maybe I'll choose to buy those phases if I get close enough to the end, right? And I did, right? I've done every dockyard after the original Puerto Rico dockyard, and it was the way that I kind of chose to engage in that, was to, let's see how this goes, right? And like you said, it really does depend on how much you're playing, but there is just free stuff along the way, so why not, right?
Yeah, I don't think if I was a new player Botanica, I would buy a booster. I think I would just see how far I got and then make a determination. It's going to cost you more than at the end if you want to buy stages, but I don't think I would just lean in on it. Plus, if you're new and you don't have any tech tree tier 10s yet, you don't really need a tier 10 destroyer from the dockyard. You're not going to have fun playing it anyway.
Maybe not ready for that in terms of being like jumped into tier 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it would be being jumped for sure.
Yep.
That'd be rough. For sure. Okay. Looking at classes, you kind of talked about this as we looked at the previous display as well, which, look at that. It's battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. And 5 battleships, 5 cruisers. I found that really interesting that they kind of really did have an even number of both of those. I figured there'd be more variability there. And then a couple of destroyers. And then on the other side, the midpoint ships, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, 2, 2, and 2. Really, as you like to say, peanut buttered across there, right? They spread that out really evenly on the midpoint ships as well. And then looking at nations, the country with the most ships is Germany with 3. The United States has 3 ships, but 2 of them were Puerto Rico, so it's really just 2. Japan has had 2, the Netherlands 1, UK 1, Pan America 1, and Pan Asia 1. With the midpoint ships being Italy, UK, and Commonwealth with a 1, 2, and 1. And then I put a tilde, like not a tilde, but like an approximately 2 for Japan, because the 2 ships from Japan that were midpoint ships were ships that were already released and already out in the game. They were not new ships introduced as the dockyard. And they were Tachibana and Yahagi. And we'll talk about those. Actually, I don't know if we will, but just for your information, it's Tachibana and Yahagi.
That dockyard, that was the Hizen dockyard, and it felt like they were trying something different.
Yeah, and it was different, right? They had 2 ships. They were previously released, which made it easy for them, right? They could just use existing content. And yeah, the Hizen dockyard, there's some experimentation in at least the way that those pieces work, I think, for sure. And they'll try new stuff every now and again. Graf's Bay was a midpoint ship, I think. But at that point, it had already been out. So maybe I should have put it on this list with a tilde as well, or whatever, an approximate line. I can't remember. I'm going to have to go look for that. Who Jam's confirming, though. I do vaguely remember that. Do you remember which dockyard that was, Who Jam? Well, said there are too many off themes. Then Graf's Bay was then. Was it Odin? Yeah, that makes sense. At that point, I think I got some sort of dubs or something instead, because I had already had Graf's Bay in my
I don't remember what the because when we did the one that had Tachibana and Yahagi, we had those boats already. Probably I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember if we got a little pittance of dubs for that. Graf's Bay. Which one was Graf's Bay midpoint on? Was Graf's Bay in the Odin dockyard or in the ZF6 dockyard?
Brand said Odin. I'd have to go confirm.
I can remember.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where I got like the Garland camo for Graf's Bay. I think they did one of those camos with the Garland. It's just, we're not a fan. But anyway.
Yeah, Razid's saying Odin as well. Raz is on that, and so's Odie. So we got a few voters in chat. So either we're all crazy or we're all right. So I'm gonna go with right.
One of those years I always get confused because I feel like during the Hizen one we also had like simultaneously the event that gave us like Strasbourg, but that was like a different thing that was related to like the winter holiday, and so there was just a lot going on that month because I thought that was a midpoint ship, and then I had to go back and look and go, no, that was part of some other grind that happened at the same time.
Right. And that's just that thing where there's always stuff going on, and then they put it feels like they just put a dockyard on top of it. So one thing that was interesting, I've got this note at the bottom too, is the very first dockyard was Puerto Rico. We saw that in December of 2019. It was this huge grind, and it was very, very challenging. And I looked at the math on it, and I said, boy, that's gross. I'm not going to do that. I don't need a giant tier 10 cruiser. And then ever since then, we've had 3 dockyards a year, approximately every 4 months, but not exactly, right? So if we go back to this picture, it was winter 2019 when we did Puerto Rico, and then Odin wasn't until summer of 2020, then fall, then winter, and then they got into a spring, fall, winter, spring, fall, winter, spring. They're calling this one on the wiki, they call it the summer/fall dockyard, and so we're expecting a winter dockyard in 2023 as well. But that first Odin, or that second dockyard, the Odin, came in, and it took them a little bit longer to bring that one out, as they were kind of getting their head wrapped around the concept of the dockyard and everything. So we've had 3 of those every year. So about every 4 months, you'll have a chance to be involved in a dockyard, assuming they continue that pattern. So for those of you guys newer to the game, you're going to be thinking, if you don't do this dockyard and you go, I did pretty well on this one, maybe I'll do the next one full out. Maybe I will choose to dig into things. You'll have a chance probably, this winter, probably within the next 3-4 months. Any other comments on what we got on the screen here, Scott? Or otherwise, I'm going to jump to the next one.
No,
let's go. Hanstein, thanks for the follow. So this is the data that you and I put together at like 1 a.m. a couple of weekends ago. So what do we have here, guys, is we went and we pulled the data for the number of battles played on every dockyard ship on the 3 servers for World of Warships, the NA server, the EU server, and the Asia server. And then what we did was we counted the number of months the ship had been out, and we divided the total number of games by the number of months that ship has been released. And so what that gives us is, this is an approximate number. It's not going to be like down to the hour, the minute, the day, whatever. But it is approximately the number of games each server has played on a dockyard ship per month since it became available. Now, one thing that's really important, and I got to stress this, is you can't compare the NA numbers to the EU numbers, but what you can compare is how popular the ships are within a given server. So if we look at the NA numbers, we can see Puerto Rico is North American servers' most popular dockyard ship in terms of games played per month since it was released. Hizen is the least popular. But what we can't do is take a look at the Puerto Rico numbers on NA and say, look at the Puerto Rico numbers on EU. They play so many more games, because we know that EU has a very large server population. And that's just because there's more human beings over there that are playing World of Warships. And so, again, can't compare those numbers across, but we can look at where the ships are inside each of these servers.
Is this scientific? No. Is it anecdotal? Yes.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Anecdotal information.
It's
Is there a scientific application of this? No, this is just some data we wanted to talk about that we think is interesting.
Yeah. And so what we can do is we can kind of compare roughly the popularity of a ship from one server to another. So what we can look at and see is like, look how popular, for example, Daisen is on... Maybe it's not Daisen. Look how popular ZF6 is like on EU and NA. And then we can see that on Asia, it's higher up the list, right? Its rank is a little bit higher. So I can't really point because I don't have a cursor that I can point over here. But that's kind of interesting to me. And look how unpopular Anchorage is on all 3 servers. It's 3rd to last on NA, it's dead last on EU, it's 2nd to last on Asia, and it's dead last globally as well.
And this was, the way we did this was like, and I think you said this already, but again, this is like
that's okay.
Battles per month since release, right? And so what's interesting there, like Daisen is the last one that completely came out, right? You could have Lushun now if you're like a filthy try hard whale type, but the Asia numbers for Daisen are massive since it came out. Like people were playing that over there, at least in the last couple months when we looked at this data, they were. It is not, as played on the other servers, right? And
it's not as popular.
Whereas something like Puerto Rico, it's come out twice. Like, it doesn't surprise me. Proliferation of that ship is probably just more out there. We talked about like, hey, you could get some of these in Santa crates, and that skews what we're looking at too. Like Odin's in Santa crates now, so some of those Odin games are from people that didn't get in the dockyard. But it's kind of interesting, I think, and anecdotally at least, to look at this and go, yeah, like kind of what's getting played and what isn't getting played. And like you said, Anchorage, unfortunately, is just kind of like the dog with fleas that does not get played much.
Well, and the other thing too is, I mean, as you pointed out, right, and Razid just made the comment in chat too, this is sort of affected by the Christmas container availability for some of those ships. And really, this doesn't mean these dockyards are more popular. This is how popular are those ships after they're out there in the world, right? Whether they came from the dockyard, whether they came from a Christmas crate, whatever that was. The other one that's really crazy to look at is Atlantico. North America loves Atlantico. Is our third most played per month dockyard ship. In EU, it's fourth most played, and on Asia, it's dead last. And that speaks to, I think, just like maybe the different meta that's over there on that server. We know that Asia has a much longer range, more carrier-centric meta, and I think Atlantico is going to struggle in that kind of environment, which I think is interesting. And I do like how Odin is kind of popular. It's top 3 on all 3 servers. Even though we talk a lot about Odin's obvious weaknesses, she's still pretty freaking fun to play, and so it seems like people are responding well to that.
Chat pointing out an interesting thing about ZF6's numbers, right? A lot of people like ZF6 if they have it, and it's pretty good if you have it. But I think this isn't what you're looking at with those numbers too would lead you to believe maybe not a lot of people have it, which we kind of figured out when we were looking at this data. It's not as prevalent. And that probably is also why Lushun's the second destroyer that we've finally had in a dockyard, and why there has been a lot more battleships and cruisers, because I think they did ZF6, and I think maybe it didn't sell as well. We don't know. Tinfoil hat. Maybe it didn't sell as well. And yeah, I wish they would share that kind of stuff with us. I wish we had a point of contact there that was like, oh yeah, you guys want to talk about this? This isn't a big deal. But that's like Netflix sharing ratings for Umbrella Academy. It just ain't gonna happen. So they give it away. Yeah, that's a weird reference, but they're business secrets, right?
Yeah, they're not going to give out their business secrets. But I think you're right on that, though. I think that's something.
I think you say, hey, maybe that's why we haven't seen another destroyer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and we know the AA meta, the CV meta on Asia is big. Look where D7 Provincien is, right? So it's second to last on both NA and EU. And it's right up there mid-pack, right behind Marlborough. By the way, Marlborough being third most played on EU blows my mind. Those Brits are out there just smashing battles out in Marlborough, aren't they? What are they doing? I love it. I love it so much. That's so crazy. I just think this is a really interesting, as you say, anecdotal chart. This is not factual.
It's anecdotal.
This is not something you should go back and yell at Wargaming about, because it's just not that legitimate of data.
Oh, yes. It's nothing that ever occurs in a ship show should you go back and yell at Wargaming about. You can yell at us about it. But
you can holler at us if you want or whatever. Do so with a smile, please. But don't go hassling Wargaming over this stuff. Unreal Allen says, did you ask Bogsy et al. For statistics on how many players completed the dockyards? I did not, but I have asked some similar questions, and they don't like to give out that kind of information. I could probably swing a question to him at some point and see what he says. You're like, hey man, and every once in a while I do. I go, hey, there's no way you'd give me this data. You definitely won't give me, will you? I mean, I recently asked Seraphis in a YouTube comment if he'd give me results data for 300,000 battles in World of Warships. He has not responded with a positive or negative answer. So, it's just one of those things where I'd be surprised if they'd release that data to me. But here we are. No big deal. I think that's probably, I don't know, there's a lot I think we could look at here that's kind of funky. We do see a lot of popularity for Daisen though over there on the Asian server, which is great. It's their second most played ship per month. I think that's worth commenting on. Hizen is low on all 3 servers, but it's lowest on NA. It's a little more popular in both EU and Asia. Things like that, kind of interesting to just kind of poke at. And Schroder, I wanted to talk about Schroder. Schroder is lower on NA than it is on EU, and a little bit lower again on Asia. So one of the things that we know is how popular World of Warships is in Germany specifically. It is a very popular game over there. Germany has a lot of World of Tanks players as well, and so when we look at the EU server, we see Odin being number 1. We see Schroder being a little bit better than the other servers in terms of rank, not games played, because again, we talked about how you can't compare those numbers. So that doesn't surprise me at all to see a little bump in Schroder on the EU server as well.
I assume it's all those Germans playing Marlborough.
You think Germans are playing the Marby? Maybe.
I assume. I mean, I assume whenever you see large EU numbers, it's it's Germany
I mean,
and
it
Poland.
could be.
I think
It
there's a
could
lot of
be.
players in Poland as
Yeah,
well.
there's
and
a
like,
lot of Polish players.
I just assumed that a lot of those people. I think maybe they just got Marlborough fever.
There are about 12 ships to talk about, I think, plus or minus. And so we've got them in 2 groups of 6. 2 of those ships are Puerto Rico, however. So, we won't talk about that one twice, but it will appear twice. Let's go to this next picture. So I annotated these with the time when the Dockyard took place, the winter 2019 or the fall 2021, what have you. And so, Skada, let's start with Puerto Rico. Now, we just witnessed a little bit ago when I was playing a game in Puerto Rico. This is not my ship. It doesn't really work for me. What's your experience in Puerto Rico?
Welcome to the party, pal.
Well, I got Puerto Rico in the winter of 2019. That was a brutal dockyard that I played a lot, and I still had to buy a lot of stages. I don't remember how many, probably more than it was worth. There was 2 of us in our clan that got Puerto Rico in that effort. And I'll tell you what, Puerto Rico had such a stink on it. So many people were so down on that ship that if you had that ship and played it, you got so razzed in
Oh, you mean
randoms.
like people who were mad about the
Yeah.
Dockyard being
Yeah,
such a Herculean
mad about the
effort.
Dockyard. People were mad
Yeah.
about the Dockyard, mad that they didn't get it, mad that you had to whatever, right?
Now that you had to
And
pay
so
for
those are the-
stages, because that was the first time we experienced that. And people were like, what do you
Right.
mean I got to pay for stages? Because they weren't listening in
so-
the beginning, and then they ground. Yeah.
I remember that for a long time. I
Yeah.
did not play Puerto Rico a lot because when I would play it, it was just like you would get focus fired so much because people, and then it was just like just nasty comments. It was just like so incendiary.
Yeah.
So I bet my numbers in it are terrible, and I bet there aren't a lot of them because I didn't play it very
Welcome to
much.
the party, pal.
Frankly, I played it more in clans
Yeah.
than I probably did in randoms. For a couple seasons, I would use it on and off in clans if it made sense.
Right.
But I avoided playing it. It just had a real stink behind it, and it was just not fun because of that, which sucks. Like, frankly, that's a bummer that the community made people who had it feel that way. I don't,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you know,
You weren't
people
the
can
only
have their own
person
opinions on it.
and you weren't the only person I know who felt that way. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I heard that from
Yeah.
others as well.
Yeah. So like I like the ship. Like if you actually like, what is Puerto Rico? Well, Puerto Rico was like, let's take Alaska and make it a tier 10 and add another turret and make it a little bigger. And it's this wild ship, right? It's got radar. I mean, it's got all the same tools as Alaska. It's got radar and hydros and stuff, but it's, got one more set of guns, and it has some drawbacks from Alaska. I actually prefer Alaska more. I think Alaska is a better ship because Puerto Rico in its balance phase was given the battle cruiser or whatever big cruiser dispersion was taken away from it. It was given like normal battleship dispersion, so its guns aren't as accurate as Alaska's. But the guns are good because they're Alaska guns, and it's like totally impossible to Citadel. Yeah, Hujam brings that up.
Yeah.
Downside is it takes 60-second fires, and after the captain rework, that made that whole class of ships just harder to play. But as the original Dockyard ship, Puerto Rico was pretty impressive. Like when that first Dockyard came out, and they're like, "Here's what this thing is. You're gonna build a tier 10 Alaska."
Yeah.
And we're just like, wow, that's crazy. And then the missions were like, oh no, I can't have a life this holiday season.
The missions were like, oh, I actually have to build a tier 10 Alaska, like
Yes.
in
Yeah,
my garage. Like, forget it.
Mhm.
Hang on, I gotta jump into Streamlabs real quick and tweak some stuff. It's what's crazy about it is we were at that time in the game, we were getting the super cruisers, right? We had Alaska, we had Aegir, probably, we had Kronstadt, and we were getting those big tier 9 super cruisers. I don't know exactly which ones were out at that exact moment.
Yeah, I don't think we had Aegir and Siegfried yet. We would have had I think we probably had a Zuma. We probably had a Shishino.
I had a Zuma,
already.
maybe Yoshi, but like this was like, dude, that Alaska that's so dope? They're gonna give you a bigger, badder, better one. And that was a big deal. Like it was pretty sweet. And so like to have that come through, people didn't know what to expect. And you know that Wargaming kind of picked this ship and they said, we're going to make it so impressive and cool that people are just going to have to give it a try. The Dockyard, that is, right? Because it was the first one. They really wanted to sell it to us, I think. And this is all Clyde theorization, but
yeah, even with its drawbacks, I think if Puerto Rico hadn't been a Dockyard ship, I do think it would have been like a steel ship. If they never invented the Dockyard, and you try to imagine where they would have distributed, like, I like to think about that sometimes, like, well, if Dockyard didn't exist, what would these 11 ships, how would they have been distributed? Puerto Rico might be the only one of them that I think would have been probably a steel ship.
Yeah, that very well could be, especially being a 10 and all of those things, because we didn't see another tier 10 Dockyard ship until Puerto Rico came back, and then now for Lushun, which is the first time around. Yep. Right. Which is pretty nuts. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust notifications so they're a little less.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you Puerto Rico, you know, they brought it back. So, you know, we'll talk about, you know, came out that first thing, the original Dockyard. It was a total drag. Interestingly enough, at the same time that came out, Italian cruisers were happening. So, like, early access for Italian cruisers was like at the exact same time. And there were a bunch of Dockyard missions tied to, if you have Gorizia, which is a tier 7 premium Italian cruiser that they put out at the same time. And so, like, you basically were like, look, I gotta buy Gorizia to even get close to trying to get this Dockyard done. So again, the guy in the clan our clan that also had Puerto Rico, we both bought Gorizia for that purpose, just because. So you're buying like you're buying like a $35 premium, and we both, there's a long time where I didn't like Gorizia after that either. I didn't want anything to do with that ship because you had to play it so much. And so it was just this gross thing. You know, subsequently, fast forward to summer of 2022, they bring Puerto Rico back. They make the Dockyard less gnarly.
Right.
And to be fair, they took care of all of us that had gotten it the first time around by issuing this, like, if we did the Dockyard, because technically I ground Puerto Rico twice. That's second true. Dockyard, at the end of it, they issued me this, like, golden frog. And we could exchange that golden frog for enough steel to get any steel ship, enough coal to get any coal ship. We might have been able to get research points with it. I don't remember. I got steel with mine.
I think the idea with the frog was you ground the Puerto Rico the first time, and we're so glad you did that. If you'll do it again, and this time it'll be different, you'll get a golden frog. And the idea was you can basically spend that frog to get enough currency to get any of the other kinds of ships, a steel ship, a research bureau ship, or a coal ship. And that was basically what they offered you. Or maybe, was doubloons an option? I think dubs might have been an option. I can't remember.
You might have been able to get dubs too. I specifically used mine.
The concept was to get another ship that was also just awesome, you know.
Yeah. See, Dodger in chat saying he got the Ohio. So, like, when I think of the second Puerto Rico Dockyard, for me that was the incomparable Dockyard, because I used that to get
I remember that now.
And so, like, you know, as much as people bang on Wargaming, that was a cool thing they did for those of us that did it the first time.
That was good. Yeah.
And, you know, but yeah, I mean, so what else do we want to say about Puerto Rico in regards to the ship? Like,
so I was just going to say, we've been talking a lot about the event, and I think talking about Puerto Rico's event is probably an important part of this discussion.
I think for this one, it's really the only one where I would want to talk about the event.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was just going to say. Is we're probably not going to talk about how the Zeven Provincien event went, because it's vague to me. I don't remember it. But this one was so significant, right? But Puerto Rico, you kind of covered some of it already. Like Alaska, it's got 305mm guns. Its hit points are pretty big. I pulled up its numbers here. It's sitting there on 71,650 hit points base. So it's kind of like almost a battleship. It's almost a battle cruiser, but not quite. I wouldn't quite put it in that category, but it's a big, tanky, monstrous thing. You talked about using it in clan battles, and some folks will say, yeah, I can use it in clan battles or whatever, and others will say, no way with those long fires that it has. And that's fair, right? At certain levels of play, you're not going to see Puerto Rico, but at the beginning of the season, you know, in the first couple of tiers, bronze and silver, you'll see some people bring out a Puerto Rico every once in a while, and she can do good work. She's got those sensors, the hydro and the radar, just like Alaska as well. Sorry, go ahead if you got a thought.
No, I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure when I used it in clan battles was before the fires change. Did it used to have 30s?
Or did
Well,
it have
you could
60s
it always had
before?
long
Now it has
fires,
30.
but you could run fire prevention because
Oh,
it was
that
before the
changed.
captain rework.
Yeah,
Right. That's what ruined Alaska. Well, not ruined it, but that's what made all those ships suck more or make them harder. Is
They
that
made them harder, for sure.
you'd use a battleship captain build on those kind of ships back then, basically, and now you can't. That's not a cruiser skill that exists to defer those longer fires. So, but yeah, like I said, I think Alaska, if tier for tier, is still better. But Puerto Rico is no slouch, and you can have real powerful salvos with those guns. They're great guns. The AP's like the heavy AP, it just smashes stuff. And then again, it's like super hard to Citadel. It's really, really a tough ship.
Yeah, I got beat up pretty bad in the battle I just played in it. But I didn't get Citadel, right? I got torpedoed, right? And I had two different Puerto Ricos were hitting me. They were penning me, but they weren't sitting me. So that was pretty good. Yokai says, we run Puerto Rico in Storm Clan battles. NB Dodger says it was my clan battleship. And I think that's totally a thing that groups are going to do, right? And I think Puerto Rico brings a lot to the table for those teams that are able to make it work. Again, when we see folks getting up to the upper echelons, we don't see it as much. But I think for a big chunk of the clan battles, strata, it's well within a reasonable thing to pick to use, for sure. I don't know that I have a ton more to say on Puerto Rico. It's as we said earlier, it's not really my ship. So
yeah, the other thing about this too, like Puerto Rico, when they brought ships into Santa crates, Puerto Rico didn't come in.
Right.
So you can't. Puerto Rico again is a ship that you can't get, as far as we know. I do not. We have no idea if in Christmas of 2023, if Santa crates will have Puerto Rico or not.
Right.
I doubt
no idea.
But you never know. But right now, it came out in the Dockyard twice. People had a chance to get it again last year, and once again, it's unavailable. And so, next ship.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick, Boca Boy, thanks for the raid and bringing your folks here. We're going to take good care of them today. We're talking Dockyard ships. Welcome, everyone. Okay, second Dockyard ship on the list is Odin. So you and I think, are both Odin fans. I love the Odin a lot. When this Dockyard came out, I can't remember if I was like, every single Dockyard that comes out, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to do this one. And then I always did it, like every single time. And so I was probably going, I don't know if I'm going to do this one or not. Pokeboy says, I get all my news from Clyde Plays News. Thanks, Poke. And I was probably like, I don't know if I'm going to get it. And then I said, wait, it's got hydros. So it's like my Turpits, but it's got hydros. It's got torpedoes, which is cool. Okay, well, maybe I'll get it. And I ended up getting it. And, she's got 305 millimeter guns, and I love battle cruisers with those 305s. And I really find, or are they 350s? Hang on, I think they're 305s.
No, they're 305s.
Yeah, they're 305s. And I love those battle cruisers with those guns, and I like maneuverable ships. We were talking earlier about my struggles with Puerto Rico, and part of it is she's not the most maneuverable. And for a battleship, and I say for a battleship, Odin gets around pretty good. And you remember that when I first got this boat, I played the crap out of it, and I had just a run 1 week where I was just getting Krakens left and right in this thing. And it was so much fun, and it just really endeared the ship to me. I'm a big Odin fan, and I think she's really fun to play. She did show up in Santa Crates this last year, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
she was.
Yeah.
I think some of the earliest content on your YouTube channel is some of those monster games in Odin, right?
There's at least one or two.
A couple of crazy, like back when you used to make like the Clyde play-by-play videos or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
Odin's interesting because it's tier 8 German battleship. Wow, there's not a lot of those. But
sorry, you caught me off guard with that one. But yes,
I like the ship. It's really funky because it's kind of the battleship that plays like a cruiser almost.
Which is totally why I love it.
The reload. We both are big fans of any battleships that have fast reloads, and it has. You like Scharnhorst, right? And so I know we used to talk about like, well, Odin kind of feels like a tier 8 Scharnhorst, right? Because it's got smaller guns and it's faster reload. It's got some torpedoes. Odin thankfully has the hydros. The one place where Odin really takes it in the shorts is probably on the hit points.
Yeah.
Its health pool is rough for a tier 8 battleship, but it's even for the era when it came out, it has pretty good stats. It's pretty good concealment. nowadays that's hard to say because so many newer ships have like obscene concealments. We're always
It's
talking
so
about, well,
weird,
this,
right?
we're always talking about this new ship has the lowest concealment ever at this tier for this class because it just seems to be more common now. But Odin has good concealment. You can, it doesn't have a gob of secondaries. You can play it like as like full secondary spec. I think we used to. I don't know if you still do. I don't think I use that kind of configuration on it anymore. It really, the guns are good on it, and if you lean into them, then you really probably get more out of it that way. But even the last time I remember playing Odin on stream, I had a really strong game in it. I don't think I Kraken, but I think I had a really solid game. And it's a fun ship. I do enjoy playing it when you get the right matchmaking. Bottom tier is tier 8 battleship with 50,000 hit points. Probably feels like a bad time. But it doesn't have amazing, it's not like it's super tanky. So it's that part of it's kind of a drag, but I do have a fondness for this ship as well. And yeah, I really enjoy it. And this is one where again, I don't want to say, hey, go buy a ton of crates, but like this is one that if you're lucky enough to get it out of a Christmas crate now, hey, good for you. That's a good get.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree that if you stumble onto an Odin through a Santa crate or something, presuming it's still in the list this year, we usually don't see them pulling things from the list as aggressively as people might fear. But if you happen to get one, it's a good boat. I always tell people not to whale for a specific ship. That's a great way to lose a lot of money, and to get some boats that some of which you don't want, right? So that's a good way to spend a lot of money. If you're already whaling and everything, then that's your prerogative. But if you did wind up getting an Odin, and you're like, great, another tier 8 German battleship, give it a try. Like, it's fun. I like that boat a lot. You talked about its secondaries. It does not have the best secondary armament of a German battleships at tier 8. Or even of any other secondary battleships at tier 8. I think mine is probably still built for secondaries just because that's silly and fun. But
it's not that they're not accurate.
Really, it just doesn't have the volume of fire. Really.
It's not that they're not accurate. They work like any normal, not like the battle cruiser line, but they work like only any normal German battleship secondary package does. There's just not a lot of them. It doesn't have a large volume of fire. Plus, like fore and aft, there's like a higher caliber like turret. I don't know if it's like a 155 turret. It's like a bigger turret, and the reload on that one is like really slow. Like you feel it when you're trying to play. Like if I look, I might be making that up, but if I look at the stats on it, right, like the reload is 3.4 seconds on the 128s and 7 seconds on those 150s. So that's that bigger turret, and you feel that like it's just like there's like one of those in the front and the back. The 128s, those are like the same secondaries off like a curve first, and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. I don't need IFHE. This is a battleship where if you wanted to do secondaries, you don't need IFHE to make those guns work, because with German quarter pin, they're big enough at tier 8 that you don't have to worry about it. But if you look, there's just not a lot of them, and so there's only 6 of those 128 batteries, and there's only 2 of those 150 batteries, so you just don't get a volume of fire out of the secondaries. Now I'm not saying like if you really wanted to like build a cool Odin captain, I might consider like making the secondary range, like maxing out the secondary range, not taking manual secondaries, but then taking the skill that boosts your main gun reload if you're in secondary range, because then you can really like get that main gun reload down. Because that's where you're going to do most of your work. And yeah, it's a fun ship. I mean, I don't know. I feel weird talking about these a ton because I don't want, we can't really just say, hey,
get them. But it's just kind of good to share the experience and stuff. And you know what's interesting about Odin is we did later get Brandenburg, right? So Brandenburg is kind of it's the Odin we have at home. We talked about this a lot.
I was wondering if we were going to talk about this. So
I think we could throw those out as possibilities for people to
we have been of the opinion for a number of years that occasionally Wargaming puts out a premium that is very close to what a Dockyard ship was like, in an attempt, I feel like, to scrape some of those people that didn't get the Dockyard ship to get something similar. And so from our point of view, the similar premium to the Odin would be the Brandenburg. Now Brandenburg you can run secondaries on because it has more secondaries, and it has a Tirpitz or Bismarck hull, so it's tankier, has more hit points.
So it loses the big secondary turrets, but I'm panning over it right now. You've got 2 sizes of smaller secondaries, right?
Yeah. And so like this ship plays a little bit differently, but because it has the 305s, we always were like, oh, that's we have Odin at home, right? This was like, well, you didn't get Odin, but here's something similar.
Well, in Brandenburg, you may have just mentioned it, and if you did, I missed it. It doesn't have the hydroacoustics, right? So it doesn't avoid the torpedoes quite in the same way that you will with an Odin, but it does get that 4th main battery turret. So again, not to say go buy a Brandenburg because it's the Odin that you missed out on.
Brandenburg,
but it is similar in spirit.
Brandenburg's really just turpits with the 305s instead of 380s. Because it has that's what it is. But at least it has the 305s. So if you really want to try those 305s at tier 8,
yep,
there you go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well. I think I started about Odin. What do you think about Anchorage? Anchorage is one we both have.
Yeah. Between the two of us, I think I am the Anchorage enjoyer more so than you. I've had a lot
That's
of
probably true.
Like, I probably haven't played a ton of games of Anchorage, and I probably haven't played Anchorage in quite a while. But I do remember having some really nice games in Anchorage. Anchorage is kind of interesting. For starters, we both love the special Dockyard camo for Anchorage. It is this awesome Pacific Northwest, North America, Native American style art camo that we both just think is cool.
It is pretty rad.
And so, like, for starters, I just love that about it. Dead Horse points out Rochester is better than Anchorage. Rochester is my pick for we have Anchorage at home. That's the premium I would say is similar.
Yes.
So Anchorage, where Anchorage is different, you look at Anchorage, you're like, wow, it's got all these guns, right? Basically, Anchorage is like a Buffalo at tier 8, but instead of having the Baltimore or Buffalo guns, it has the New Orleans guns. So, or more accurately, it's probably actually more like Wichita's guns, but it's got the tier 7 U.S. cruiser shells on a tier 9 U.S. cruiser hull at tier 8. And instead of having radar, it has smoke.
Yep.
And it has 9, this is all from memory, mind you. I think it has 9.2
10.5 kilometer torpedoes.
Does it have Benham torps?
That is the range of the Benham's torps. I imagine they are similar, if not the same.
Oh man, I thought it had Benson torps.
I thought it did too. But look at those 10.
Okay.
I'm looking, at least in my build here, it says 10.5.
Cool. Anyway, so yeah,
but
I was trying to do that
for
memory.
For a U.S. cruiser in the upper half of the tier scale, though, that's really unique. Like, that's not.
Yeah, well, back then, back when that ship came out, I don't remember any U.S. cruisers other than like Omaha. Like, you didn't get torps on U.S. cruisers like up in that upper end, and not on the heavy side, right? And so I liked Anchorage when it came out. Anchorage's drawback is the range.
Yeah, like, 15.6 kilometers.
Main battery range on it kind of sucks. The reload's not epic either. And the smoke fire penalty, because you can sit in these long American smokes in it, but the smoke fire penalty is prohibitive to like really do that for a long period of time, because your range kind of the I don't remember what the range is between your smoke fire penalty and your gun range, but it's not epic.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it in here. I don't know if I've actually got access to this stat.
But in general, I like this ship. I find this ship to be, I think this ship's hard in randoms right now. I think in 12v12s it's harder. I think you can get more done with this ship. I have played this ship in like tier 8 ranked seasons, which is not something you'd probably see people do now. But I do think this ship has a lot of tools, and I like it. It's definitely, you look at the numbers, it's probably the least popular Dockyard ship. It's up there.
It's pretty bad. I mean, we had those numbers, we were checking it out. We'll jump back here. So Anchorage, third to last in NA, dead last on EU, second to last in Asia, and dead last globally. It is, at least with our anecdotal, not super scientific data, it's the least popular, right? And Razid commented, camo is great. Guns seem to lack the pen you expect, and that's because it's got those tier 7 shells. They're 203s, but they don't pen like tier 8, tier 9 203s like you think. And so you do suffer from what Razid just pointed out, which, that is a thing. I did just play a battle of this. We did 71k. I was pretty happy with that. Fighting against tier 10s. Didn't land any torpedoes. It was all fires and things like that. But I did not get big pen, with the AP shells that I launched. Right.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the bummer, right? You're trading. You're like, well, I've got you again. I've got the Buffalo here. It's basically the Buffalo. It's the Tier 9 ship, but it has the Tier 7 ship guns instead of the Tier 9 ship guns. At Tier 8, instead of radar, smoke, you know,
Yeah.
and it has torpedoes, which is just wildly different. And that's, you know, it was very, you know, very kind of set up weird at the time. And I still like the ship. I don't play it very much anymore. I think the last time I tried to play it, I was really frustrated with the gun range and probably bottom tier, and just was like meh, and just didn't want to go back. And I haven't played it in a while. But
you know what I just realized is,
you know,
and I've had this boat for so long, and I never got particularly good at it, but I had the fighter equipped, and I should have had the spotting plane equipped, because you can swap that for a spotter, obviously a better pick. And then, you know, with the new change to that, if you had a bespoke commander built for this, you could actually use that eye in the sky skill, which is now less punitive than it used to be. So definitely worth considering if you're an Anchorage enjoyer. Get out there and use the dang thing with that.
Yeah, maybe I'll make an Anchorage commander with eye in the sky. I don't think I don't know if there's any other U.S. cruiser I'd use eye in the sky on.
Except for you don't need it on Vallejo.
No,
so it's a
you
bad
don't.
Pick.
It's a meme on Vallejo.
I mean, it's a meme. Yeah. My brain was broken.
Yeah, maybe I'll make an eye in the sky. Maybe I'll make an eye in the sky, you know, captain for that, and see how that works on there, and see if that makes it nice. But yeah, I agree. My favorite thing, probably still to this day about it, is the art style. Being from the Pacific Northwest my whole life, that is an art style, while not of Native American ancestry, it's an art style that I've seen around my entire life and I'm very comfortable with. Big fan of the art style on that ship. We've talked like many times,
kind of, you know.
To me it does. I want that camo for Seattle. I want that camo for you know, I want that camo for Alaska. If they ever would have put the Portland in game, which, even though Portland is probably not named after Portland, Oregon, and it's probably named after Portland, Maine, but is an Indianapolis, you know, it's that kind of ship. If they ever put that in game, I want that camo for it. I love that camo. I wish that camo was able to be used on some other stuff, but I've always dug that camo. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool, and I know a lot of people are like, "What? That's lame. I don't like that. It's too bright and crazy. It's ahistorical." Yeah, it's okay. There's a lot of camos I don't like too. You know, I mean, that's
fake
fine.
And not real, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's all good. And again, you're allowed to have that opinion about it, but I mean, you just know, I guess, that there are a lot of players who are big fans of that camo, as crazy as it is, right? And that's cool.
Yeah, and even like you know, the picture you show of Puerto Rico here, that's the I got the Puerto Rico. That picture of Puerto Rico is from 2022. That's the I got the Puerto Rico in 2022 camo.
It is.
Those of us who got Puerto Rico in 2019 have a much more garish camo for it.
And I don't have it, so I can't show it right now. I just had to show that one.
It is stars and stripes, and very much. It's very much like the Go Navy camos on a U.S. light cruisers. It's the crazy, very American stars and stripes camo. And it is awesome. It's way better than that one for people that got it last summer.
I really like the one for people who got it last summer, but the one that you have comes with clout, and that is rad. So like, I think it's cool to have it.
Yeah, if you see a Puerto Rico with that other camo, you know that's a guy who made bad decisions 4 years ago. and
yes,
yeah. If they put USS Bremerton in game, I would like it to have that camo as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, we've got Euphemism is talking about the Oregon City, DGW Photos talking about USS Bremerton. Like, we've got people calling out all these Northwest ships named after the Northwest.
I have been salty ever since they put Rochester in game that isn't Oregon City and that it is Rochester.
Because Oregon City's the class, right? It's the Oregon City class.
Yeah. I know. It made me mad they picked Rochester for that one, but whatever.
On the one hand, I think they did that because Rochester wasn't never completed, and so now if they decide to
Rochester has. I think they picked Rochester because Rochester has battle stars, but they're from like Vietnam.
Oh, so they did complete Rochester. I must be thinking of a different one. Maybe I'm thinking of Tulsa or something. I don't know.
Also is not real.
There was one that was planned but never completed, and they ended up doing that. But I don't know. I'll sort that out later in my own time. That's Anchorage. I think Anchorage is probably more fun than she gets credit for, but she does have weaknesses, and that makes her unpopular. So like, you know, if you get an Anchorage out of a Santa Crate at some point, or if you did last year and you've never played it, take it out there. and get yourself your own opinion on it. Go check it out for reals and see what you think of it. I think I've struggled in it. You guys watched me play it earlier. My win rate is like 9% lower than my account win rate in it. But I think today I could probably go back and play it better. So maybe I'll log a few Anchorage games. Maybe you guys will pick it for me on stream. That'd be fun too. Jump into our next ship. It's the Hizen. Now I kind of like the Hizen, and I think I might be the only one.
You're the only one that has a microphone on this podcast that does
that likes it, because I know you're not a fan. Hizen is. There's a thing. There's a theory, not a theory. There's a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's the way Wargaming balances ships. And you and I complain a lot about how ships get balanced with reload, and that's what happened to Hizen. So Hizen's a 12-barrel Japanese battleship. She's got 410 millimeter guns, which is very common caliber or size of guns. I don't want to say caliber because that means something different for warships, I think. But it's a very common size of gun for a Japanese battleship. And because it has 12 of them, they gave it like a 36-second reload. And so she really sort of has this long period between reloads that's just really kind of rough. Let me see here. 38-second reload. Excuse me. I complimented her inadvertently.
Gross.
Yeah. I don't even have great stats in Hizen. I just have a couple of great memories in Hizen where I blasted somebody with 12 shells and did, 25k damage to him or something. Or I managed to get away with an aggressive push that I should never have been able to get away with.
His favorite game ever in Hizen was on Two Brothers, and it was built for secondaries. And we pushed all the way from the south around through A to the north or something, and you were just having a hell of a good time. But you built it for secondaries.
That was sort of a meme, by the way. Or definitely a meme, by the way. It was so dumb. Hizen is not a good secondary ship. Don't do that. No. However, I do have a YouTube video about building ships for secondaries, and I use Hizen as an example for the memes. And it features that battle, I think. But that's actually probably my second favorite one. I played one, I don't remember the name of the map right now. But it's where I just pushed up on the side and I caught like a Petropavlovsk and like a Bismarck fully broadside and just eviscerated both of them and just got away with murder. But Hizen isn't really built for that. That's not what she's for. That's not what she's good at. She's too frail to really be an aggressive pusher like that. Why do you think Hizen is unpopular? Because I think she is unpopular. Why do you think she's like not a great ship for people who did unlock her?
There are so few premium tier 9 Japanese battleships. I don't know why it doesn't get played more.
Are you telling me that between Musashi and Hizen and what else is it?
And Daisen. Hell, there's two. They like tier 9 IGN battleships so much they put out 2 in the Dockyard. Great.
Now, to be fair, those are the only 2 Japanese Dockyard ships. But you're not wrong. There are a lot. It feels like there's a lot of tier 9 Japanese. And if you throw Izumo in there, and we're about to get a new one on the bungo line. Oh, Awami.
There's the new bungo line. There's a tier 9. There's also a tier 9 premium Japanese battleship in the works again. Like I can't pronounce the name, but there's another one.
Tsuruga.
Somewhere in the bowels of Wargaming HQ, there's either a guy that just loves tier 9 Japanese battleships and he's in charge, or there's some data set that says like that this is the most profitable thing that they've ever made, right up there with tier 8 German battleships. Because great Gugamuga, but
they do have a number of them, that's for sure.
Why would Hizen be less popular? So that was a winter dockyard, right? That was the first, what I would say, Christmas dockyard. There was 2 that was a great dockyard. It was kind of a long
Christmas
dockyard
after Puerto Rico. Yeah.
There's Yahagi and like the Tachibana in that dockyard. I don't even remember what else is in that dockyard. I hate this ship personally.
You do, and I think that's worth talking about, right? Like
let's set a baseline. I have bad luck in Japanese battleships.
That's true. Part. You don't like Japanese battleships in general.
I tend to not enjoy Japanese battleships very much. The ones I do like are things like Hyuga that have a weird gimmick.
And Hyuga's stupid and fun.
And Hyuga's stupid, right? But and I like Musashi because it's overpowered. And I actually like Shikishima randomly. I have like relatively good stats in it, and it's
Hmm.
dumb. And I like, but like Yamato, I don't enjoy a ton because the turret traverse makes me angry. Why don't I like Hizen? Because the reload. It's all about the reload. It's the guns aren't that good to make the reload that bad. Like if you
That
compare,
is a 100% true statement.
if you compare to other tier 9 and tier 10 battleships with 12 guns, the guns on that ship are not so good that the reload should be that bad, in my opinion. There must have been somebody when they were testing this ship that was just
just wailing on people.
Just every test match in this ship was 200,000 damage and just rain and pain, because it makes no sense to me why the reload is so bad. The ship itself, if I like and I'm an actual Awami enjoyer, right?
You are an Awami enjoyer, that's true.
And it just, this ship just has never worked for me. And then I say that, and we were talking about our stats, right? I've only played this ship, I've only logged 6 battles in Hizen.
Really?
Right? That's how much I liked it. That said, I have a almost 67% win rate in it, with a green PR, with a green PR and 77,000 damage average. So for a ship I don't like, I probably should play it more, because my stats
maybe it's
horrible.
fine for you,
Maybe, but I just never enjoyed playing it.
Yeah.
Always waiting to reload. Ugh.
That's for sure. Let's see. What did I want to say? I wanted to say, yeah, so there she is. So one of the things, we're going to talk about Daisen later, but Hizen and Daisen, kind of a different style. Hizen has less pen than Daisen. One of the things that makes Daisen special, and we'll talk about this, is her AP pen is increased. So Hizen is much more like a Wami's AP pen. It's about almost 100 millimeters less than Daisen. But that's actually normal. Daisen is actually the special ship here. Well, I should save this for later. But as you said, Hizen's guns are not special. They don't perform. There's just a lot of them. And when they adjust a ship's performance by changing its reload, one of the things that kind of sucks about that for us as players, and this is a concept I've been thinking about a lot over these last couple of weeks because I've been thinking about other ships, but is that you can't use your skills to overcome a reload adjustment. You can use your skills to overcome a velocity adjustment, or you can play different when it comes to maybe a concealment adjustment to balance the ship. But when it comes to a reload adjustment, there's no amount of left clicking or WASD hacking that you can do to make your guns reload faster. And so that becomes something that just basically puts a ceiling on your ability to perform. Now, is Hizen's ceiling too low? I don't know. I honestly can't speak to that. I'm not the kind of player who scrapes against the ceiling of possibilities. But that is one of those things that when you're waiting to reload, it just feels frustrating because you're waiting to play video games, it feels like. We got a question from Joey who says, did you have a comment on that before we go to that?
Nope.
Okay, Joey says, is Musashi good? I don't have her. I'm a new player, but I have friends that have her, and they complain a lot. Musashi is good. She's like a Yamato, and I'm going to do this briefly because we're really not talking about Musashi tonight, but she's like a Yamato, but she has worse Sigma by a fairly significant amount. I think, is Musashi's Sigma like 1.7 and Yamato's is like 2.1, 2.05.
Yeah, something like that.
So there's a bit of a gap there. So Musashi hits really hard like a tier 10 Japanese not super battleship, but Japanese battleship, but she doesn't have the accuracy that Yamato brings to the table. The good news for everybody is that Yamato's a tech tree ship that everybody can get, and it is kind of awesome, even though it has a weakness that everybody knows about. But yeah,
Musashi's good because you can smash Colorados with it.
Yeah, you get to fight tier
7s. That's why it's good.
Yeah,
that's what makes Musashi awesome, is that it has 457s, or 460s, which it was a big deal a few years ago because it has overmatch, and now everything has overmatch. But back in the day, and so that's why people like Musashi, because you can paste things, or in competitive seasons or quasi-competitive seasons or ranked or whatever, when they only allow tier 9s, it usually gets banned now because the guns are so big, right? So anyway.
Yokai points out the Sigma's 1.8. You're saying the Sigma's 1.8 on Musashi, Yokai? If that's what you're saying, then thank you for fact checking us. Appreciate it.
Musashi also has like worse AA. It has detriments to it.
Yeah,
compared to Yamato, but this isn't the Yamashi. We can talk about Musashi if we want. It's just not a Musashi show.
Yeah, that's true. We'll stick with the Dockyards, but feel free to ask questions, guys, as we're going.
But it's definitely better than Hizen
as well. Would you like it better than Hizen?
If you're gonna get something out of a Santa crate.
Yeah, well, You got me there. There's an accuracy by volume thing that Hizen does by having 12 shells, but that 38-second reload just kind of is rough. I think that is a big part of why it is less popular. It's also not particularly well armored because most Japanese battleships are not particularly well armored. And then I can't speak to its AA right now, but I imagine it's not. Yeah, its AA strength for Hizen is pretty low, so she can be victimized by aircraft carriers pretty readily. So I don't know, that's probably the wrap up there on Hizen. Do you want to start us off with ZF6?
You should. You're the destroyer boy.
All right. I'm doing 2 in a row. You know me. ZF6 is great. I like it a lot. I was so excited when they did a destroyer dockyard and was happy to grind through this ship and pick it up. Once I got it, I was not particularly good at it. And the concept of a reload booster is not hard to understand. And the thing I like to say is it's like swimming, right? Everybody knows how to swim. You move your arms, you kick your feet, and you do that stuff. But getting in the water and actually doing it, you still have to train your body to do those things. And using a reload booster effectively, using it well, was the thing that I had to kind of get my head wrapped around, because I wasn't really a reload booster expert from playing the French cruisers, which was kind of the first place we'd seen that mechanic, right? And so I got ZF6. I love the stealth on it. I love just the guns. I love the AP, because you can sit there and farm battleship superstructures like nobody's business. It starts fires. It's got a reload booster. It's got smoke. There's not much I don't like about ZF6. She's really great, and you can throw your moose or your what's the name of the commander that everybody loves? Your Luchins. You can throw your Luchins on there, and then if you spot 3 ships, you have a heal on a ship that doesn't have a heal. And as a destroyer, you spot ships. So, like, it's actually kind of cool. And I've kicked off that heal, not every battle, but a few times. It does happen, and it's useful when you can do it. It's really hard for me to say negative things about ZF6 because I don't have any. I think. Euphemism says ZF6 may be in my top 3. It might be my top dockyard ship. It just might be my favorite of all time. We'll keep talking about this, and you guys can quiz me a little bit later. But Skada, you've played ZF6 as well. What did I leave out, or what do you think about it? Sure,
I don't think you left anything out. My numbers in ZF6 aren't amazing, but I acknowledge that ZF6 is really good. It's a neat ship. It's fun because it's a French Hardy class DD that, like, in theory was like taken out of the docks and like refitted by the Germans or something, blah blah blah. It's not real, but it was like a thing that could have been. And like, we don't have a La Hardy class destroyer in game for France otherwise, right? That's something that should happen, and I'm surprised they haven't used this asset for reuse and just put French guns on it. So you've got this like French DD, so it's like sneaky, and it's pretty quick, and it has a speed boost, and and then it has these German guns that have a pretty interesting layout, that have a pretty good reload, and then you've got the main battery reload booster, which you don't normally have on German ships. It might be, one of the only German ships I can think of that has that. Now somebody in chat shall tell me the 3 that I'm forgetting. It's got pretty good smoke, and the torpedoes don't suck either. It has, like, even though they're only 8-kilometer torps, they're pretty quick and they hit really hard. If as memory serves, they hit harder than most German torps, I think.
I can get you the damage here. The base
I think
damage
they feel
is
like
18,400, so it's almost Shima level.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty good.
I think they're
Shima.
more like a French torpedo.
Yeah,
because
that'd be
French
similar
torps on those
to
higher tiers.
Marceau's
like
torps
terrible or
do
something.
15.
Like Kleber torps hit like a truck. And have similar ranges.
They do the same damage
right?
as Kleb torps, but they go.
Yes.
Oh, no, they're also 8 kilometers. Yeah, so I think.
So they might just be Kleb torps, which is crazy on a tier 8. And
They're
so
very similar.
and then like you said, you put Luchins on it, and you can proc that heal. You can also probably shoot your guns enough in a long game where you can proc the main gun thing that Luchins will do. So, this is a great DD. I'm glad that it hasn't really been made available, because I don't want to fight more of them.
I don't want to be a jerk, guys, but please don't try to kill me with a ZF6.
I don't want to be a jerk, but I have it, and you don't, and that's okay.
I do hope that for the sake of players who don't have it, there's an opportunity at some point in the future, and I do hope that I do hope it's a challenge and that people rise to the challenge and get it. Not first dockyard ever, Puerto Rico. That's terrible. But like, you know, if they did another dockyard with ZF6 in it, I think people would go for it.
Yep.
You know, talking with other CCs and other content creators and other just people I know who I trust to play the game, trust to have, you know, I think well-balanced opinions. It is considered by many to be a really good boat. I have bumped into the occasional person who says ZF6 is terrible. I'm so sad I got it, and I'm like, who hurt you? Because it is so good.
Yeah.
It is such a good boat, and I do hope that one day it's made available again for folks.
I think if anything, I think there's a small subset of people that look at, and this is, you know, when this line split happened, that probably changed some, but I feel like when this ship came out, there was a subset of players that were like, a German destroyer that doesn't have hydros, this is a piece of junk. Because it was like a national flavor thing to have hydros on a German DD, and this doesn't have them, and it was weird.
And it didn't even have all the cool French things the French DDs have. What even is this thing? It's like when people don't understand the ship.
It actually feels it feels a lot more like a French DD, but then it has smoke, and it's a cool boat. It's an interesting boat. And what's the conceal? The conceal's on it's great too, right? Like 5.8 or 5.9 built.
Let me grab mine and I'll flash it around for people. I forgot to do that. I think it's 5.8.
Yeah.
With a commander on board. Let me double check. Concealment is 5.8 kilometers, so that's basically like Vampire 2.
And I don't think it tops any charts on like gun DPM or torp DPM or any of that stuff, but it's really it's just a fun, well-rounded DD, and I would agree with you in a way is probably one of the jewels of the series of Dockyard ships, of the 11 Dockyard ships. It's, in my opinion, it's definitely, you know, near the top of them as far as like good boats. I think we might get to a point where we talk about in this conversation about how there seems to be a tendency for Dockyard ships to be a little bit lackluster. This ship doesn't suffer from that.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation was that, you know, we've had 12 dockyards, or are in the middle of our 12th one right now. 2 of them were Puerto Rico, but now there's enough dockyard ships that you can look at them as a class of ships, not like a ship class, but like as a group of ships. We can say, look at all of these dockyard ships. Are they actually lackluster? Are they actually amazing? Or is it really just a grab bag like any other type of ship in World of Warships, right? Because now there's enough of them that we can see if there are trends or whatever. And not that like it's exact science, it's not. But I think you're exactly right when you talk about ZF6. She does not have any stink of being mediocre on her in any way. Use the phrase well-rounded, and I think she is well-rounded. I think she's reliable. She's good at enough things that makes her kind of fun. I will say the 8-kilometer torp range is short, right? It can be tricky to use that. Not that you'll ever get, you wouldn't get spotted at 8 kilometers, but you know, you might get surprised and then spotted. You know,
8-kilometer torp range is short until you think about it has a 5.8 conceal, and at tier 8. There's other ships with
2.2 kilometers of play space, but
there's other ships that I play at tier 8 that have 8-kilometer torps, but when they're faster, hard-hitting torps like that, like they get the job done.
Yeah, and I have used the torpedo. You do use the torpedoes in this boat. You don't just rely on the guns, because that concealment is low enough that you can do stuff like that. If your side is getting pushed, you can kind of fall back slowly. You can drop your torpedoes, pop your smoke, farm for a second while they deal with the torps, and then sprint away. You know, so you can do things with those torpedoes. You can get them used. Whereas like on a French, like on a Kleber, you don't have a 5.8 kilometer conceal. So those same torpedoes a lot less commonly used on a Kleb, whereas they are used on ZF6.
Unless you run Kleber with its leg mod.
Yes, you could do leg mod Kleber. That is a possibility.
One thing I would throw, we kind of passed the line there. So like we talked about Puerto Rico, we talked about the next 3, right? So the ships from 2020 were ones that moved into Christmas crates last year. This section that we're in now, the 2021, that I think we both speculate that these ships will move into Christmas crates this year, right? You think so?
Did they put Hizen in too? Did it also go, or was it just
I think it was Odin. I think it was Odin, Anchorage, and Hizen. I think.
Okay. I think if Hizen was on the list, and I think it was, I think you're right, then I could see the 21s being there. Obviously, big time speculation zone right now. We have no facts. Nobody tells me anything. It's possible. And if they put ZF6 in there, I think you'll have a certain kind of whale who tries to go get it. Again, whaling for a single ship, kind of a bad idea, but I think it's at least on the table, and I think there are going to be players who are holding their breath to see if that happens. I can't remember what the third 21 ship is. It goes ZF6, it goes D7 Provincien, and then we got to turn the page. But let's talk D7P. D7P.
I'm pretty sure it's Marlborough.
Oh yeah, I think it is Marlborough. I think you're right.
So D7P.
Yeah, take it away.
I'll do this. D7P comes into the game at the same time that they introduced Dutch cruisers into the game. And where D7P kind of varies, right? So D7 Provincien was a real ship. And when you get the Dutch cruiser line introduced at the same time, as you work through the Dutch cruiser line, you kind of have light cruisers up through tier 7. When you get to tier 8 in the tech tree line, you switch over to the Haarlem, and the next 3 ships are all like heavy cruisers with long fires and escalating heavy cruiser guns that play different. And what you had in the D7P was a continuation of the earlier part of the tech line. This ship feels a lot more like the tier 7, tier 6, the tier 5 before it. The guns on it are like 152s, if I remember correctly.
Yep. It's a light cruiser. Yep.
It's a light cruiser. This ship has a lot of tools in its toolbox, consumable wise. It has heals, which is not super common for tier 8 cruisers. It has a speed boost, which comes in handy. And it's got a really, really strong AA suite. And then of course it has the Dutch gimmick of what do we call it? The airdrops or
airstrikes.
What's the actual
Yep.
airstrikes, Dutch airstrikes. But D7P's airstrikes were different than the main line in that they target a smaller patch of the ocean. You can queue up 3 of them instead of 2, and so they work. So if you're like, well, I can do airstrikes with Haarlem, or I can do airstrikes with Johan de Witt or the Gudenlau, and then you try to do them on D7P, it feels a lot different. If you've played the coal destroyer, the Tromp, the Dutch destroyer, its airstrikes are about the same size as D7P's airstrikes, but Tromp's airstrikes feel different as well because the bombs drop quicker. I don't feel like D7Ps fall that fast. I think that's just a Tromp thing. And so when D7P came out, it was kind of like, okay, we're doing this dockyard boat, we're doing this line grind. Hey, we got this boat. This plays kind of like the tier 7. It's got these great, it's good at starting fires. It has good HE. The gun velocity is pretty comfortable. You can loft shells over islands, but it's not like US light guns, right? There's more pop behind the guns than that. Concealment, if I remember correctly, is relatively good. So all in all, it's a pretty decent, well-rounded ship. What's your take on it?
I like D7P. She does, as you point out, she extends the Endrocht line, and Brand was keen to mention that she's a real steel ship, and Brand says the only real steel dockyard ship, he might add. So that is cool. D7P is the sister ship in real life of the ship that was eventually sold to, I'm going to forget the country, so I won't say it, but sold to the South American country that became, I think it was Peru, that became Almirante Grau. Which is available. Both of these ships have that amazing AA suite that you talked about, and we looked at how popular this ship was on the Asia server earlier because of that AA suite. She lacks torpedoes. I think you might have mentioned that, but if not, I'm going to make it clear. No torpedoes on this one, but you get those airstrikes instead. She's got a speed boost, I think, and hydros, right? So she can get around pretty quickly.
She has hydros, does she? I don't think she has hydros.
Not hydros, hull repair. Sorry, hull repair.
Yeah, she got a repair, which is
no hydros, no
cool
hydros
for tier 8 cruiser.
So she's got the speed boost, she's got the repair. Those are two things that I find really valuable in a cruiser that, when she takes a hit, it hurts. She can recover from that a little bit. I like the airstrikes on this ship because they're small, and I think you get 3 of them instead of just 2. And like you said, you can target a small area of water. And so if you get good at them, and frankly, I'm not as good as I'd like to be, but if you get good at them, you can really dish up a lot of damage in a small space. You can hit destroyers, or you can triple drop like a battleship or something, and you'll get fires and things like that. She's kind of a natural progression from the Endrocht line. So mine shares my Endrocht captain, which means when I play the D7P, I'm not leveling my soon-to-be Hunleu captain. It's my Endrocht captain that's getting the points because it's a light cruiser, and I actually build them a little bit differently. But I think the ship's fun. She's got a great rudder shift, and She's worth playing. She can get shot up by battleships though. She is vulnerable in the ways that light cruisers are vulnerable. So if you like light cruiser play, she's going to be for you. But if you're a Petropavlovsk enjoyer, this ship's not going to scratch that. It's just not going to fill that role for you. But I do love that she's a real ship and she's cool. So it's a good ship.
And I liked when it came out that it was linked to that Dutch line introduction and how you could look at that. Well, this progresses the lower part of the line. Because that's real. Like the 3 tech line top end Dutch ships are all fake. Like that was like, oh, if the Dutch worked with the Germans prior to World War II to build like giant cruisers that were kind of like Scharnhorst that were going to like
if they invented
go into the Pacific
ships,
go into the Pacific and help fight against a threat from the Japanese if that ever happened, which it did. Blah 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 blah. So those ships are all like a different design concept. This ship was real, and it is a real thing, right? So, and obviously was probably modernized through the 50s and 60s and 70s, and that's probably why its AA is so good. But yeah, I don't have a ton more to say to it. I actually hate the airstrikes on it. I think I've said that before.
If you didn't, I was trying to coax that out of you by saying that I like them.
I am very comfortable, and I wouldn't say I'm good in the Howden Lao, but I'm very comfortable with the way the airstrikes work in Howden Lao and have had good success with them. And when I go play D7P, which I do not play that often, I go, God, I hate these airstrikes. I can't hit anything with them. I can paste things with the Howden Lao ones. I can't hit anything with the ones in D7P.
And I have the exact opposite.
They make me so mad, and so I just don't like them.
I don't have the Golden Lion yet. I'm on the 9, which has a name, but
Johan de Witt.
Yeah, that's right, Johan. Don't mess with the Johan. But I cannot land those airstrikes at all. But I can, at least on occasion, land the D7P ones, which is good. I'm actually best with the Tromp ones, which I know is another one that can throw people who are good at the Golden Lion ones for a loop at times. But
I don't like the Tromp ones either because the size is small, but at least they make sense because they drop. The Tromp ones are like, we don't have parachutes on these boats.
They drop fast, which is legit.
Yeah, they just fall out of the sky. Yeah.
One thing that Brand also, by the way, Brand is a bit of a D7P enjoyer. So if you're not catching all of these, the anecdotal comments we're getting from Brand along the way, Brand did comment that all of the guns rotate 360 degrees. So when I talked about the rudder shift earlier, if you're dancing back and forth, these turrets can all spin whatever direction is the fastest to get the work done for you. So that's actually a really cool feature for the boat that keeps the DPM up when you need to be bringing those guns around to be avoiding that dangerous incoming damage that we were just talking about.
Yeah, this ship doesn't feel like it's from World War II because it's not.
Yeah, this is clearly like a 1950s.
Yeah, this is like an early Cold War.
Yeah, it says it entered service in 1953 if you hover on the client. So
yeah, it definitely feels. You look at some ships in the game like Forrest Sherman or whatever, different ships like that were real ships that were like Cold War ships, and they just feel different. And this is one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
What is Elar doing up? I feel like he get up at like 4 a.m. now to teach America's youth.
Summer vacation is almost over, man. Let him have one more night of partying. All right, let's go to our next slide, which is this one. This one is the Marlborough. So I will talk a little bit about Marlborough. Marlborough was kind of panned. People were not excited about this ship when it got announced. It is a 16-gun battleship. It's British. It's got a very good fire chance and pretty poor accuracy. She's got 356 millimeter shells, basically from like a tier 7 tech line battleship. So she is not the most potent of ships when it comes to hitting with each individual shell, but she lobs 16 of them over the horizon there towards bad guys. People didn't like that. They didn't like the inaccuracy. They didn't like the accuracy by volume for Marlborough. But I kind of found her to be sort of better in reality than she was on paper. Skada, what was your experience with Marlborough? I think if I remember right, you finished the Dockyard like a week before me, and I feel like I remember you going, "Get ready for this boat. It's pretty terrible," and like you were trying to make me sad about finishing the Dockyard.
Yeah, this is another classic scenario where this is a ship that you like and I don't.
And I just like it because it's weird. Let's be real, but yeah, that's true.
If you can get a Dockyard ship with a 1.45 Sigma, you just gotta do it.
You gotta do it.
The weird thing with Marlborough, and there's some. You look at Marlborough and you, 16 guns. It has really good range, if I remember right. The turret angles on the rear turrets kind of suck. So
Yeah.
it's hard to get all the guns in action without giving up too much of your side, which feels like you're in a tier 7 battleship at tier 10
Yeah.
or tier 9. Let's see, the armor profile is very much like the KGB.
You'll be fighting tier 10s, I mean.
the guns are off of like KGV or Duke of York or whatever. But one thing that always chaps my cheeks about this ship is that it doesn't have like great HE. You when you're playing British battleships, for the most, not all of them, but for the most part, a lot of them have like, you've got all these guns. You're thinking, well, I'm gonna just light a lot of fires, and that's how I'm gonna play this ship. But its HE DPM is not good. Its AP DPM is amazing, and so like I without picking into some stats on it, and it's been so long, and I don't play the ship, I don't remember, but I feel like shell wise, this has like the, what is it? There's what is it? There's the tech line one. What's the tech line?
Duke of York. There's KGV's the tech line.
Yeah.
One.
So like KGV lights fires, and Duke of York has like better pen angles and mediocre HE. And I feel like this ship has those shells. And I don't know that for a fact, and I don't feel like looking it up. But I do know that the HE
I just had a slice of cheese,
DPM,
and frankly, guys, I'm not doing it.
I do know that the HE DPM on this ship is mediocre for 16 shells. It's like 184,000, and the AP DPM is 400,000, right? And so that part of it, I think, is kind of a bummer. Now, I'm sure that's because when it was being developed, if they let you, and of course 1.45 sigma means that those, out of those 16 shells, like 3 of them are going to hit, but I'm sure in development, like, they just toned down the HE because this thing was probably just like crushing it.
Oh, it would have been an
HE
absolute
damage.
terror if it had like the 40
so
or
it's,
50% HE fire chance, right? Like,
so I'm not a huge fan of this ship. It's fine. I don't like the turret angles. The turret angles are bad because of the four barrels per turret. It makes the turret angles bad in the back. It's hard to get all the guns around. Now, because the reload is epically good, that's one thing I'll say that's awesome on the ship. Base reload's 25 seconds. That's crazy. When we were talking about Hizen, and it's got 12 guns with this 4-minute reload, and then this dumb thing comes out a year later with 16 guns on this huge, much lower reload. Like, I love that about this. And this thing with its great reload, if all you get in the fight are the front 2 turrets, you're still shooting eight shots. That's a lot. There's a lot of 8-shot battleships out there. Yeah. So that part of this thing I actually like. Yeah. But it's not my favorite ship. And I'm sure I don't have very many games in it because I didn't enjoy it when I got it.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about the AP DPM and the HE DPM, and you're 1,000% right, or at least 100% right, that the AP DPM is far exceeding that of the HE, right? You said it's 403,200. I'll reiterate the numbers: 403,200 AP, 184,000 for the HE. Where it suffers is those lower tier AP shells don't have the pen that you need to crack into the shell of like tier and upper tier battleships in some cases. What you can do with it, though, is send cruisers packing when you have an opportunity. If you're in a Marlborough and you're 12, 14 kilometers away from a cruiser, that AP will punch. It does amazing work. And then you talked about the fire chance too. It's 24% on the ship base, which is very low for a battleship at tier 9. A lot, especially a British one, a lot of those are 40 or 50% or some absurdly high number. And it's 24. It's way less. But what you're getting is those 16 shells. And the thing that the HEs do bring to the table, and what does work, is the the HE pen, which is almost 90 millimeters. It's 89 millimeters at 12 kilometers. Obviously, a lot of times you'll be firing from further back than that. So you can scrape off AA mounts. You can start fires, even though it's lesser percentage but higher volume of shells. And again, don't be afraid to switch to that AP when the conditions are right in your Marby, because you can actually do stuff. She's not the tankiest. You talked about the turret angles in the back. They're tough to bring those into play, to get those on board to do the work that you need done sometimes. She does take big citadels. The shells are not very fast. So many things about this ship, but she's way more fun than she should be on paper. The Sigma 1.45, according to Ship Tool here, That's just comically low. It's like so bad, right?
Yeah.
Hizen is 1.7, and we tease Hizen for accuracy, right? We're usually looking for a
Yeah.
2.0 to say it's an accurate ship.
Yeah, and this is what, like you said, the AP, again, that AP, because it's 356, you don't have a lot of overmatch. Like you can't overmatch, like you
Right.
can't, you can only overmatch
Right.
24 millimeters. You can't overmatch the bow of like most cruisers at the tier that you're going to fight. So that's a bummer. So you've got to switch to that HE, and then that HE isn't that impressive. So that's a bummer. So what you're hoping to get out of this ship is like, oh, I just somehow surprised a cruiser's side, and now I'm going to feed you all the beef, and you just smash them. And then because that's where the 356s come into play, that they feel great because you're not going to get as many overpens. It's not like, you know, blasting something with a Kremlin where you're going to get overpens, right, or something like that, right? So, you know, I like it when battleships can smash cruisers that make misplays, right? Everybody gets frustrated as a battleship player when you blast a cruiser that made a bad play and you get overpens. This ship's less likely to do that. But I don't like battleships that struggle to fight battleships.
And this one does struggle to do that at times.
This one does, yeah. So
you can do some really silly, if you take a 3 Marlborough division and you park, you know, bow away from the action like you do in a Nevsky and farm people to death. I have posted some absurd damage numbers. Again, for me, right? I'm not going to go posting 500,000 damage games like some folks can, because I just can't. But, you know, you can do 150,000 damage pretty consistently, or at least more consistently than I can with other ships with Marlborough. I do also have terrible games where I get smoked and only did 35,000 damage too. But, you know, you can do a lot there. And if you take a spicy division of fire spammers out there, you can be pretty horrible to one side of the map. You won't make a lot of friends that way, except for maybe with the guys in your division, but it is kind of a thing you can do with just that rate of fire. You talked about the reload on the guns too, which is quite good. What is it,
25
seconds? Yeah 25.
So built, it's like what, 23
probably, yeah, like 22.9 I think is what that winds up being, or something.
Pretty awesome in that regard.
Yeah. So Marlborough's kind of one of those funky ships. I think it got kind of made fun of when it came out, and it is sort of a silly boat. I doubt that it's anybody's favorite ship, but, you know, we looked at the popularity graph, and I remember when we pulled this together, I was so surprised to see how popular it was in Europe and relatively popular in Asia. You know, it's only one position behind in the Asia server, and then it's another position behind on the NA server. So it's probably least popular on my home server, which is why I have that thought about it. And then, of course, most popular over on Europe in terms of comparison.
I just don't feel like I see it. Like on NA, I don't feel like you see them that often.
We really
like,
don't.
You don't see, but to be fair, you don't see a lot of these ships that often, which might lend itself to a thing where maybe less people have dockyard ships than we realize.
That could be too. I mean, each dockyard is a commitment, right? Not only a commitment of time, but a commitment of dollars. And some players are free to play. Some players don't have that much time. Definitely a thing where players could find themselves in a position where they don't do all the dockyards or any of the dockyards, you know. And I think that's perfectly acceptable, of course. Let me grab. Did I get my giveaway going? I did. Sunflower, yeah, we got you. Sorry, I saw you typed pizza and it didn't show me that you'd gotten in, but you are entered to win. Okay. That's Marlborough. I don't think I have a ton more to say about her, really. She's fine. But you should take us through Atlantico. We both like Atlantico, don't we?
Yeah, you know, so we go through that winter dockyard and it's like, here's Marlborough. And then the next dockyard we get that spring is like, we're doing a battleship again. And you're like, you're doing a battleship again? What's this all about? And then they're like, it's a Pan-American battleship. And we're like, buh. Because at the time, there wasn't any Pan-American tech tree. And so now you've got to, and then they're like, what's the ship's deal? Well, it only has AP. What? And it's like, they're 381s, right? Okay, well, that's weird. And it looks like a ship from World War I, but it's a tier 8.
They're really selling this to me at this point.
And you're like, man, this, like, where can this get better? And then they're like, but it's going to be they're going to be really good secondaries on it. And also some of the secondaries are going to be 240 millimeter, like basically like the secondaries are, they're 234s, and they're basically like the same shells as like Goliath. And you're like, what now? Hold up. And so that's Atlantico, and Atlantico is like a dreadnought style ship. It is not fast. What's it go like? Maybe 20.
I think it's like 25 or something. Like
not a fast ship. The gun range isn't amazing. It does have a pretty solid concealment.
Yeah, it does.
You know, and its secondary range is only like a hair off of that concealment. So if you slow roll this thing up, and once you get spotted, you're probably in secondary range, right? And so that part of it's a ton of fun, and the secondaries are pretty good. In fact, I feel like they've toned down the accuracy of the secondaries a little bit. Maybe that happened in testing and
there was
not
a
after.
period where there was some
I can't remember,
testing
but
nerfs. You can read about it on the dev blog, right? But I mean,
yeah,
they had that
but all in
change.
all, like this ship I've played, in randoms probably less, but I played the ship a lot in the tier 8 clan battle season that happened after it came out.
Yeah, you did.
I found it to be a ton of fun that season because it was kind of smaller maps, and the ship's relatively tanky, and the main guns are AP only, but they're 381s, and I feel like they're like maybe like a shorter fuse AP, like I feel like they do something a little bit different on them, but all in all, I like this ship a lot. As far as Dockyard ship goes, it's one of my more favorites, and because it's just kind of a silly ship, but it's kind of fun to play. Where it really is a bummer is because it's slower and because it has like no hydros. It doesn't have there's not a whole lot going on when you're playing it. You've got AP, like you're not using a lot of keyboard keys, right? It's like AP.
Yeah.
So there's no shell switching, and there's like damage and heal and
you can play this boat with 3 buttons plus WASD, right? It's RT, left click, and then WASD.
There are no other consumables. There's no hydros, no defensive AA. There's nothing else, right? And so you need to control click on things occasionally for the manual secondaries.
Yeah.
And otherwise you just drive it around kind of slowly and shoot things. But I like the main battery on it. It's relatively accurate, if not super long range. I think it's only 17, 18 kilometer guns, but I think the ship's good. I think you do too.
I do. I do like the boat quite a bit. Main battery range, just to grab a couple of the numbers you're talking, 18.6 kilometers, 30-second reload on the main battery. The AP shuttles, I kind of thought they had something funky to them too, but it looks like the fuse times are .033, so that's standard. And it's got the same ricochet angles, the 45 to 60 degree ricochet angles as well. So pretty typical stuff, but they do pen pretty well. It feels like the targets you're throwing these AP shells at take damage. So I don't know really what it is about the shells. They just kind of work. You talked about how, I don't want to say it's boring to play the boat, but there aren't a lot of buttons to press, right? You just drive around and you shoot at stuff. The secondaries were silly. We did see them take some adjustments during testing to make them a little bit less accurate than they were initially. That's just an interesting historical footnote. It doesn't really matter for the ship today. But I do enjoy Atlantico. And I know I said this earlier, this is one of the dockyards where I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this one. And you were like, I don't know, man, it looks kind of cool. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it, right? And so I decided to get it. Again, a dockyard I almost was like, maybe I don't need this. Do I really need a slow-ass secondary battleship with no hydros? Sounds like a bad time. But I genuinely love this ship. In fact, I made sure that it appeared in the teaser video for the Golden Barnacles last year, because I like it so much. I wanted it to have a prominent moment, and I did some jump cuts and stuff and made it look cool. But it's really just a slow dreadnought that does good secondary things, and the mains kind of work, or seem to work really well for me. And it's kind of hard to talk about how the ship's great because it is so simple, right? It's a blunt instrument for getting work done,
Yeah, and it's not the most fun in the world against 10s.
Sure. Agreed.
And it's it's pretty overpowered versus 6s. And that's probably like where you want a tier 8 battleship to be. Like it does, that's kind of that range there, right? Like if you have a tier 8 battleship that holds its own against 10s, then you're kind of like, hey, wait, what? Wait a minute,
what's wrong here?
You're not the end of the world if you're fighting 10s in this, but you're probably going to go down to fire spam or torpedoes that you can't really see coming or dodge or anything. But yeah, I don't know. I just like the ship. It's fun to play.
I do too. Grant Wise says one person's boring to play is another person's comfortable to play, and I totally agree. And I have fun in this ship, and it's hard to. Sometimes it feels like it's hard to push in with a slow ship, but you can get it done with Atlantico. Like you said, the secondaries being so close to the concealment range, the detection range, that it makes it fun that when you spot somebody, you fire off that main battery salvo, and it isn't long after that your secondaries start popping off as well. And then Sully says Skada knows how to talk a lot of ship, which I think is true. That's a true statement.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point of the ship
That's
show.
what we're doing. Keep up, Sergeant Sully. No, that's great. Yeah, I don't know that I have a ton more to say other than I think this is one of the good Dockyard ships that I think is fun.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite Dockyard ships. It's one that I didn't regret getting and that I've enjoyed playing.
Mm-hmm. And I think, when we're done at the end of this, we'll say, okay, if you got to pick 3, which ones are there? Don't spoil it now, but we'll kind of do our pick 3s. Next would be Puerto Rico. So they brought back the Puerto Rico Dockyard. I said earlier we're not going to talk about that again. If you're interested in Puerto Rico, rewind the video a little bit. And then we can go to Admiral Schroder. I think you started talking about Atlantico. I'll talk about Admiral Schroder. Admiral Schroder is another one where our opinions were kind of divided. I didn't think Admiral Schroder was like super powerful, but I thought it was fine. And I think some people were really enamored by the secondaries. They loved the idea of a secondary cruiser. I liked this thing that Admiral Schroder had that was similar to Atlantico. It's very stealthy. And then as soon as you get spotted, your secondaries start going off. They're very accurate and things like that. What she has is really low tier shells. I think they're the same shells from the Koenig Albert, which is a tier 3 premium battleship. And I think that tier 3 steals them from a tier 4. So Admiral Schroder is kind of an interesting boat. No torpedoes. She's got great hydros. She's fast. And she found a really interesting use in the most recent season of Clan Battles, where we had a mix of tier 8 and 9 ships. People were using her as kind of a Napoli replacement for that galloping speed to go up and run a flank. They were doing pairs of Schroders for that. I think she's really got a nice niche in those smaller game modes like Ranked and like Clan Battles. I think she's a little harder to pull off in a... I'm sorry, I said ranked and random. I think I should have said ranked and clan battles. She's a little harder to pull off in a random battle, where you're likely to run into aircraft carriers, and there's just 12 variables, 12 ships that are looking for you, and they're trying to kill you. Skada, you've got a very different kind of thought on Schroder, and I think it's probably worth throwing out there to see, kind of the other side of that coin. What do you think about Admiral Schroder?
I mean, just as far as like, if we're talking about, so like, coming out of getting it out of the dockyard and then playing it in randoms, I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I'd rather, unpopular opinion, I'm sure, but I'd rather play like A-Gear. I just don't like this ship very much. I can appreciate the speed boost on it being really good.
I love the speed boost.
The hull itself does not, I know it's tanky, but it doesn't feel as tanky to me as the other like heavier German cruisers. The sides on it are kind of big and flat. Its gimmick being the secondaries, that's fine, but again, you can't do manual secondaries on a cruiser, so you're kind of dependent on just extending their range and hoping for the best. I think what I don't like most about this ship are the main battery. I really just do not like the guns. I think the main battery is a bummer. And so, that was kind of my take on it. Like, I just didn't like it. Coming into playing randoms in it, I don't find enjoyable. It just doesn't do it for me. And then Clan Battles rolls around, and this thing is just like,
everywhere.
The hot potato. There's 2 of them. They're going super fast. The secondaries are destroying everything. It doesn't really matter if the mains work. Turns out they're really tanky if there's half as many ships in the game that can shoot at them.
Yes.
And you got to remember that Clan Battle season where these were used was 6v6. It wasn't even a normal 7v7. So you get 2 of these darn things, and now all of a sudden their hit point pool and their heal and their armor's good enough when there's only, X number of other guys that can shoot back. And no overmatched battleships that season because the way they set things up. So it was really like a perfect storm for this, what I would consider mediocre ship to do really well. They get used a lot, and everybody's like, nah, this ship's really cool, man. You can do all this great stuff with it in clans. Okay, well, that's cool. That's fine. Glad it had an itch and stuff. And then that clan battle season ended, and I don't feel like Schroeder's like tearing it up in randoms. Like, it's not gonna, in my opinion, it can't. It's not that good of a ship. I think if there are 12 other guys that can shoot at it, if there's subs and CVs that can dismantle it, I don't think it's as good. So I'm glad I'm glad it had a niche in a clan battle season that I hope we never experience again. Frankly, I did not enjoy that 6v6 split 8-9 goofy restricted clan battle season, and this might be one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it. But as far as it goes, like this was a winter dockyard ship last winter. Probably pretty popular. I bet a lot of people got this because it's German. But yeah, it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I think you mentioned submarines. It's important to remember this thing has over the side ASW. There's no airstrike ASW on this thing either. And in my hot take video about it, there is a submarine that I dropped depth charges on top of, and then my secondaries actually finished killing him, right? So you're not going to use your depth charges very often, but your secondaries do help when submarines get frisky. Sergeant Sully says Schroder was there for brawls. Definitely makes sense for brawls, right? In a limited ship competition, I think Schroder's going to be a ship that people pull out and use in that scenario. It's going to be another place where it's going to be be able to have some strength there. I saw another comment I wanted to grab. Katsios X said, if it had torpedoes, it would be my #1 dockyard ship. I think if it did have torpedoes, it would be a little bit stronger, especially if those torpedoes had some range. But even if it had 6s, the speed and secondaries are such that you might, and stealth are such that you might be able to be in a position where you could use 6-kilometer German torpedoes. But again, alas, it does not have them.
Yeah. If it had the hydros and the secondaries and the 6-kilometer German torpedoes, and then you took away the speed boost, I would accept the crap guns because it would be good.
For you.
Well, I still think it would be junk in randoms, but at least then I think it would be really good in like brawls and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
With the torps and the hydros, kind of like how Pommern is good there because of the torps and the hydros. Like I think that would be another place where it would make Schroder Shrine. The fact that it couldn't torpedo you while it was running you over that clan battle season is probably a benefit. But yeah,
Yeah. So that's kind of Schroder. I felt like there's maybe one other note I wanted to make about it. I'm like looking at it on my screen here and trying to remember if there's anything else. But no, I think it's an interesting ship. I think it has a very specific purpose. And I think that, for those who are brawls enjoyers, I think this is going to be a boat that does get pulled out every now and again and does get put to work for sure. But like other boats boats that we like, right, that struggle, or maybe not struggle so much as, maybe struggle or don't perform as well as they do in smaller things. Like Napoli is kind of in that same way. We love Napoli in ranked, we love Napoli in clan battles, and it's fine in randoms, but like that's certainly not where she shines. We want every ship to find a niche, and for players who enjoy that niche to be able to grab that boat and go to it. We see mines in operations, right? We see, what's the tier 7 version of mines? That you
Weimar.
Like Weimar, yeah, Weimar. The Weimar. People go crazy with that thing, and there's these specific niches where that's the right tool for the job. And I think Schroder found one in that one season. Like you said, maybe it won't happen again right away. That was one of those seasons where they layered some rules restrictions on. They did some more game making. I didn't mind that so much, but we heard from a lot of folks on the stream and in the Discord who were like, "This is too complicated. It's pretty crazy." I thought it was so complicated I made a spreadsheet tool to help people build divisions, but I love puzzles like that, so for me that was entertaining. But will we see one that's configured in such a way that Schroder comes out as a strong ship again? I don't know. If we just had a tier 9 season of clan battles, I don't know if Schroder would be there if it was just all tier 9s, right? I think it was the 9s over 8s that gave it a really good opportunity. Okay, so that is Schroder. We're really down to it's really like Daisen, and then I'll just briefly talk about Lushun and refer you to my hot take video on that one, because you're not able to speak about Lushun yet, I don't believe.
No, I don't have Lushun, so I can't talk about it.
Yeah, but can you take us to Daisen? Take us through that one.
So yeah, the most recently completed dockyard, or I guess you could have completed Lushun already when we did this video, but Daisen spring 2023 dockyard. It's a rare ship. It's another tier 9 IJN battleship. Again, we joked on the Hizen how there are just so few of these in game. So few that they did 2 dockyards for Tier 9 Japanese battleships. This ship's different though. This ship is like, is this the longest ship in game? I swear, this ship is
It's
so
very
long.
long. I don't know if it's the longest, but it is very
It's just,
long.
it is so long. It's a kind of a, do you want to say it's more of a like a battle cruiser feel? Like
I would say it's a battle cruiser, right? It's
yeah, it's and you look at the Japanese tech line, like stuff like Amagi is like a battle cruiser, right? Like, but this has this weird long ship. It's got 410s, which isn't uncommon on Japanese battleships of the tier. Was it 8 barrels? I think it's only got 4 turrets, 2 barrels per turret. Ship has a bunch of casemate secondaries. You don't build this for secondaries, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of like just the whole thing's kind of funky. It does have
I have some length metrics for you. I've got to bust in with this. Daisen is the 16th longest ship in the entire game, and that's out of 500-600 ships. She is 295 meters long, which is as near as make no difference the same as Midway, FDR, Devastation, and Satsuma. The longest ship in the game is Hanover at 350 meters long, 55 meters longer than Daisen.
That's fair.
OMG.
The ship just feels very long, and
well, it's very slender too. If you
I don't feel like its turning circle is anything to write home about. I feel like it has a pretty rough. Pretty rough turning circle.
She's so skinny. You were in the middle of a thought and I interrupted. Go
turning radius on it's 1,100 meters, which I don't feel like is epic.
Yeah.
But it why? What does Daisen do? Well, Daisen's, if our memory serves, relatively good concealment. Daisen has a bunch of torpedoes, right? I think it has like 4x4 like torpedo launchers. So like,
yep.
I think you can dump like 8 per side. If I remember right.
Yeah.
And they're Japanese torpedoes. They only go 10 kilometers, but they do pack quite a punch. Memory serves, the ship has I feel like it as built has pretty good concealment. Might be really good for Japanese battleship.
Mine's 13.4 is my build. Whether my build
that's
is
not
optimized,
that great.
It's
yeah, that's not that great.
Yeah.
No, scratch that. We'll clear that out in post. Yeah, so sure. I don't even know if I've played this ship since the end of the Dockyard. To be honest with you, I think I have it. I should double check to make sure I have it. No.
I think you do.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I finished that Dockyard.
I've seen you play.
Yeah. I just I'm not a fan. Like I like it better than Hizen.
Yeah.
I feel like we talk about all these tier 9 Japanese battleships, but like I'd actually would rather play a Wami over this ship, which may not be a popular opinion, but this ship didn't do anything for me. I have one game in this ship and it was a loss.
Aww.
and I did 88,000 damage. So meh. Like whatever.
So when this one got announced, I was like, why would I do that? I already have a Wami, right? I didn't understand why we were going to do the Daisen. It looks exactly like a Wami. It has torpedoes like a Wami. The guns are the same size as the Wami. Wami is pretty accurate, so why do we need a Daisen? Well, and it took me a little bit. I kind of looked into it a little bit. So a Wami has fewer torpedoes per side that go a further distance. Daisen does a big swath. You mentioned it's 8 torpedoes per side, 10-kilometer range though, instead of the 20-kilometer range. And then Iwami has less AP penetration at the same distances as Daisen. So at 12 kilometers, Iwami pens 563 millimeters, and Daisen pens 647. So it's got better shells than Iwami. So for folks who are going to stay at distance, which means you can't use your torpedoes, and plink things, you'll be able to pen more things at greater distances with your Daisen. Iwami, on the other hand, again, is going to be able to use its torpedoes from a greater distance, but its guns need to be closer to get the same amount of pen as Daisen. It's kind of like they did those things in a weird mix. So, neither of those two ships are particularly well armored. They're Japanese battleships, and they have the weaknesses that come with that national flavor. But I think Daisen, for players who are good shots and who like shooting from range, that's a reason to go for this boat. I really like Owami well enough that I was like, I don't know that I really need to go and get me a Daisen or whatever. But it's there, and it's another ship that you can kind of play in that style, but it is slightly different. The flavor is a little bit different. Now, as you said, how many tier 9 Japanese battleships do we need? Well, listen, maybe don't ask those kinds of questions. Who knows? There's
and not everybody has all of them, right?
That's true too. That's true too.
And again, the guns on this are accurate. It has a 2.1 Sigma. It has good range. It has good base reload. I think you can build it down to like a 25-second reload, which is fine for 8 guns. That feels pretty good. I think as memory serves, I one of the reasons I might be a little salty on this is I feel like the one time I played it and I was talking about how big the ship is.
Yeah.
I think I ate like a full broadside drop from an FDR. Like all 8 torpedoes from a freaking FDR torpedo drop because it's so big, and I was trying to like run away from. I was getting chased off the map already anyway, and so I just don't have like strong feelings for this ship. But like. The other thing I'd throw out there is like, so this Dockyard ended a couple of months back. I don't feel like I see this ship being played.
Not a ton.
And again, that's a problem with the game right now, where there's over 600 ships, and so you just, it is what it is. People go back to those old chestnuts that they're most comfortable in. So I don't know if that speaks to the popularity or how many. You go look on the stats for it. And there are people that have logged hundreds of matches in this ship already. There's some of them have good stats, and some of them don't.
What's crazy about
it's getting played, but
staying with that popularity comment, what's crazy about it is I was surprised because of what you just said. You don't really see it being played, and I agree. I don't feel like we really see it being played, but look at that on the NA list. It's 4th, right? Yeah. Which again it's had a shorter period of time and everything. We're talking games per month since release, but like I was surprised it was that high. I would have figured it'd be down where Schroder was, and Schroder would be up where Daisen was, because I felt like I saw Schroder's at least initially, right? But Daisen's a little higher on the board than I gave her credit for. Lower on EU, and then very high on Asia's second most popular dockyard ship in terms of games played per month. Again, anecdotal, pseudoscientific data here, but which is kind of surprising. I feel like Daisen is a dockyard a lot of people did, and I don't know if it was just because they were thinking maybe it's time to do a dockyard. I don't know that I met a lot of people who were like, man, I can't wait to get that Daisen. It's the best ship ever. These are the reasons I'm excited about it, But here's Sergeant Sully saying, I play it daily, right? So we know those players are out there, because we do have reasonable numbers on all 3 servers, really, although best on Asia, second best on NA, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, and I probably should go back and give it another look. And
I should too, honestly.
I just something about it just didn't really click for me when I played it, obviously, and I just sat it aside and went and played one of the other 599 ships in my port or whatever, right? Like it's like whatever. Where I look forward to getting Daisen played again will be next month during the birthday month to knock a event token or whatever they call it now off of it. A snowflake. I'll use it for that. Yeah. It'll be good for that.
You'll definitely knock a snowflake off of it. That's for sure. Dr. Efson says, I love the Daisen, but I'm also a co-op main. Hey, whatever game mode you're playing, play the ship, right? And play the ships you liked in that mode. Nothing wrong with that.
It might be good in co-ops if the torp reload's adequate.
That's like actually
torpedoes,
true.
Like if the torpedoes load in relatively quickly, I don't know what the torpedo reload now, 150 seconds.
Push right into the middle cap and just launch torpedoes to both sides, Yeah. That could be a pretty legitimate
tough road
thing.
to hoe, but hey. And it doesn't have a gob of secondaries. I don't know if they're very accurate, but it actually has a really high secondary hitting DPM, which is kind of funny. It's secondary hitting DPM is like one of the better for the Dockyard ships, even though it's it's actually better than Atlantico, which is a secondary ship. But the Daisen secondary range, you can't really build for it.
Yeah.
But it has a bunch of like casemate secondaries that are actually pretty decent.
I think it was Katsios up there said, we need a random ship picker in game. I've heard of people suggesting this where they want to hit the battle button and apply a filter to it, and it just picks a random ship that fits that filter. So maybe you want to play tier 5 and up, any ship, right? And you hit a button and it picks a random ship tier 5 and up for you and just sends you into battle with it. Obviously, you'd probably want to be able to at least configure the ship, recall your captain, things like that. But I actually wrote a little random ship picker for myself recently, Katsios. So Maybe we'll demonstrate that on stream one of these days and talk through. Maybe we can
Oh,
use
that's
that
right.
to choose
That
some
was for a
random
project.
boats. That's for a little
I
project
remember
we're
that.
working on. I wasn't thinking about using it that way, but we could, which could be pretty fun. Yeah, we definitely will, Katis. It'll come up at some point. So yeah, that's Daisen. So the last ship on this list is Lushun. I'll describe the ship briefly, but at the end of the day, I already made a video about Lushun, and you should check it out. It's on my YouTube channel. In fact, well, I don't know if I can put up the poster here very easily, but you can check out the Lushun. She is a Pan-Asian destroyer. She's a Chinese-flagged destroyer. That has 4 barrels that reload in 1.4 seconds. She's got a 5.83 concealment or detection range, I should say. She has 11-kilometer deep water torps. She does not have a speed boost, but she has a very long-running zombie heel similar to the one on Sevastopol. And so you can check that ship out to kind of understand how that plays. But it's such a rare boat that a lot of people don't have it. They're not familiar with how that zombie heel runs. Basically on, let me pull it up here with my numbers. Tier 10 destroyers, Lushun. So in my build, the heel runs for a period of 60 seconds, and it heals 147 hit points every second for an entire minute. Then it has an almost 2-minute cooldown, and you can do it again. So that allows you to heal 9,000 hit points, I think, if my math is somewhere correct, or my recollection is somewhat correct. Which means that while you're taking damage, you can just continue to sustain yourself alive as long as you're not taking damage from too many sources. So I find Lushun to be really fun to play. I really like the guns on them. They shoot really fast. They're very accurate. They're easy to hit with because of the high velocity. So if you're interested in more like this, go watch my YouTube video about it. Skada doesn't have it, and being a member of the Super Test program, you're not allowed to speak about the ship until it's in your port. So we will have to get your opinion on Lushun in the future. I'm sure you'd be willing to share it with us. But
Yeah, what is it, like 9 weeks from now, or however long the
Dockyard
Dockyard grind is? I purchased the small booster for this one, and so I have to go the whole distance on this Dockyard. So yeah,
but we'll get your take on it when you've got it in your port, and we can talk about it at that time. So again, guys, go if you're interested, do go watch that YouTube video, and you'll get all the details on the ship from there, at least from Clyde's opinion. And then what I told, I had somebody come into the comments on that video, and I mentioned this on the other day when we were streaming. They were like, "Oh my gosh, this boat looks so great! I can't wait to get it now." And I went to the comments. I said, "Go watch more videos, right? Don't just get one person's opinion for something as big as a Dockyard grind, because it's not just the grind; it's a couple of dollars too." And so you want to make sure you got yourself educated enough before you jump in and commit yourself to something. So definitely get more than one opinion. Yeah, go, please.
I'd throw one thing out there about the Lushun Dockyard in general, and we've been talking about Dockyards in the process, and we talked about the Puerto Rico Dockyard being grindy. I wouldn't necessarily say that from what I've seen of the missions so far and what that looks like looking at the missions, the Lushun Dockyard is going to be exceptionally grindy. But what I will say is that I think the Lushun Dockyard, as far as what you get by progressing through the Dockyard, is disappointingly lackluster.
You're thinking the items in the stages along the way.
I think the items in the stages along the way are mediocre at best. I think there's a lot of gray econ bonuses, which are trash. I think there's some greens and some blues and a pittance of reds. I think the end of the Dockyard is now standard issue, where the last few stages we get a stack of coal and some steel and some research points, and that's all well and good. But this Dockyard being a tier 10 Dockyard with basically 1900 and something, 1950, whatever it costs per stage if you don't buy the boosters. They're not cheap stages, and what you get for the stages I think is mediocre. The midpoint prize is like a bunch of captain XP and not like an excessive amount of it.
I was surprised
or maybe
they
it's
didn't
free
put,
XP or something.
I was surprised they didn't put Anshan or something in the middle.
Right?
Wouldn't that have been nice?
Sure.
If they'd have done
why not?
tier 6 Anshan, a boat that already exists.
A
and
freaking
maybe
tier
if
6 boat that's cheap. Just throw that in there.
Yeah, and if you already have it, maybe they give you, they don't give you full freight anymore, but if they give you 1,500 or 2,000 dubs or something, that'd be nice, right? Like, the cost of a stage, right? 1950.
They would not give you, nowadays they'd give us silver if you already had it. But anyway, I just think the mechanics of this Dockyard, I don't think the Daisen Dockyard had a lot of great stuff going on in it either. and this one portends more of that, where they're like, hey, here's some stuff that kind of is mediocre for expensive stages, and that sucks. Like, it's been a while when we talked about, there being ships that you got during the grind. That seems to be a thing now reserved for the Dockyard that happens at Christmas time or the holiday season or winter.
Yeah.
There was I believe there was a, what was the mid-tier ship on Schroder? It was like Renown 44, which
it was, yeah,
doesn't really fit that mold at all. But it was kind of like, yeah, we're putting this in the middle of the Dockyard. You can get it for free. It's a holiday thing. During the last summer's Puerto Rico one, I guess we got Huron. But so then, that was a tier 10 ship where midway there was the Huron, right? So the fact that they didn't give us, like, there's a bunch, even if they didn't want to give you Anshan, right? There's a bunch of low and mid tier cruisers that have been announced that we haven't seen. Just recently, there's an event going on now where there's a competition
Cruiser
going.
Clash.
Cruiser Clash, and you could pick to get 2 of those tier 6 cruisers. You could vote to figure out which one is going to be the paid prize for the paid end of next month's battle pass, right? But hey, like, couldn't you put Ellie or Duplex or Leipzig or one of these other mid-low tier cruisers that you've announced and haven't come out? Couldn't you put one of those as like at step 18 or step 19 in this Dockyard? Like, would that have been the end of the world? Something like that? I don't know. Guess I'm not saying they're not. They've been we bag on Wargaming a lot. They've been generous lately. Like, we were able to grind for 2 tier 9 destroyers this summer for free, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe I paid any money to get Jaeger. I had to pay some resources. I didn't pay any money to get the Somme, which is a tier 9, another tier 9 destroyer. That was just a grind for crates.
Yeah.
So, they've been doing some stuff that's pretty cool. But this Dockyard, to me, feels kind of like a downer.
Yeah. I'll jump in with one more thing they did that's really cool, because we do have we've got a lot of people watching tonight. So guys, thanks for hanging out and enjoying the show. I hope you've been having a good time. One thing that's cool, we were talking about the compensation in dubs for ships you already have. You can go to, if you're a Prime Gaming member right now, you can go to the link I just dropped in chat. I'm going to put it in there 3 times. If you haven't already claimed this, you can go get the Cruiser Geneva tier 5 premium cruiser for free, just by clicking a button if you're an Amazon Prime Gaming member. If you already have that boat, you'll get 2,000 doubloons as compensation. So, I know these days a lot of times we've been seeing exactly what you said earlier, Skada. They're giving us silver in compensation. This is an opportunity where they are giving us dubs for a pretty common ship. And I collected my dubs today. And I know players who didn't get it, you get a tier 5 ship. So, I wanted there to be a mid-tier ship here. I was hoping they'd surprise us with one. They did not. But I guess there's a free tier 5 in Amazon Prime Gaming for those who are paying for that service. But anyway, so there's a Geneva for you. If you guys are here and you haven't claimed it, go get it right now.
And not really on topic. I just wanted to say that I feel like some of when we're talking about the Dockyards, we're talking about the whole event, not just the end point. I can't talk about the Lushun, the ship itself. I just feel like this Dockyard is kind of a bummer, as far as what you're getting for your effort, other than the ship. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that's worth kind of kicking around. And you talked about the things at the top end, the steel, the research points, the coal. Those, for people who are really not thinking in detail right now, those are all in paid phases, right? You can grind through 30, and then you pay money to get the really cool prizes. And that's okay, because if you're going to pay the money, you're getting the ship anyway, so you might as well get the kick-ass prizes along the way. But yeah, it would be nice if we had, I was just hoping for a mid-tier ship or some legit drop, at stage 20 or something, stage 18.
Yeah, I went and looked. I think the mid-tier drop is like 2 weeks of premium time, which, for you and me makes us like literally like
roll our eyes, like just like, okay.
Yeah, like, come on. I know if you can use 2 weeks of premium time, okay. And everybody just playing, even if you're not trying to get the ship, you can get that for free, and that's cool. Yeah. But like,
for people who are not turbo whales, though, the stuff in the Dockyard is worth more than it is to you and me. And you and I have to kind of remember that too. But yeah, gray bonuses, like the cash value of a gray bonus is like 4 cents, right? So we never want gray bonuses. Gray bonuses are not worth the time you use them in the battle. You should always be running greens if you can get them. But all of that said, for a newer player, everything has more value than it does for a more senior player. You and I look at this Dockyard and go, ugh. And I think that's fair for whalier players or players with more years in the game, but other folks will get more use out of that commander XP, for example, like where you and I don't really need 60,000 commander XP. Let me switch back over here. I'm looking at the Dockyard. Now, I did whale into some booster packs on this one, just for steal reasons. But yeah, here's the 2 weeks of premium you're talking about at stage 20, right? And so on. 10,000 coal at stage 22.
Yeah.
And you get into the good stuff once you get up above 20, right? But
yeah, once you get to the blue, I mean, and even those blue booster packs, 12 per, that's nice because I use blue boosters and want more. I'm actually starting to feel a pinch on blue boosters finally.
Some coal at stage 8 too.
I'm sure somebody at Wargaming is stoked about, but like I'm not. You know, so you know, and I'm hoping I'm hopeful that during the birthday event I'm able to build up some blue boosters. I don't think I'll be so lucky, but anyway, that's all I had to say on Lushun. I know we weren't going to talk about Lushun as much. If you want to know about Lushun, go watch Clyde's great review on it.
Thanks,
or
Clyde.
go watch. There's tons of and to be fair, Clyde did a hot take. I love the hot take series. Go check out his hot take on Lushun. leave a comment about how he got it all wrong. That's my favorite thing to do.
It's fun.
And there's plenty of content. You want to go learn about Lushun now, it's real popular, and again, folks, you can go sort that out. You can go look for reviews on a lot of these ships. I'm sure if you want more specific reviews on them, that's probably reality, but yeah, that was my comment. I was like, I think the Dockyard could be better. I think there could be more going on there.
Definitely wanted a mid-tier ship for a tier 10 Dockyard. That's my only, I'm going to look at those prizes along the stage and be like, these are probably okay, but wanted a mid-tier ship. You know, we got one for Schroder. Give me one for this tier 10 Lushun. And maybe they're cooking something up for us for the Christmas Dockyard or the holiday season Dockyard. So we'll watch for that one. We do have one more slide to look at, but first, taking a look at the first 6 and the second 6, if you could pick but 3, what 3 would they be? And you can make me go first if you'd rather.
We can take turns too, I suppose. Anyway, I would I would take ZF6, even though I don't have great numbers in it. I can acknowledge it's a good boat.
Agreed.
I would definitely take ZF6. I have a hard time not taking Odin because I just like it.
Yeah, she's good, right?
And then on this page for me, it would be Atlantico.
I know, right?
Yeah. I have a hard time leaving out Puerto Rico. So like I'd probably take Puerto Rico over something else. And if I really had to pick between Odin or Atlantico, I hate to say it, but I'd probably take Odin, or not Odin, but I'd probably take Atlantico just because it's weird and there's only that's the only
she is more unique. She's more special, right?
Yeah. If it was like, nah, Puerto Rico, Odin, and ZF6, I wouldn't feel bad about my choices.
Yeah. So I feel like I have to take both the destroyers, but if Lushun wasn't out, it would be the same 3 you just said: Atlantico, Odin, and ZF6. I know people like Puerto Rico. It's not for me. It is not the ship that works for me. While people want Puerto Rico and they're excited about it, I'm glad for them. But for me, it's just not going to make my list, right? So it'd definitely be ZF6 is probably number 1. Then it's, for the same reasons as you, I want to pick Atlantico, but it might be Odin first just because I've had such great times playing Odin. But the Odin and Atlantico are right up there. I want to throw Lushun into the mix. Do I think I'd throw out one of those other 3 for Lushun? That's hard to say right now. I'm a kind of a Lushun fanboy. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen my YouTube video or listened to me talk about it just now. So I like Lushun quite a bit. If I had to throw out, I'd probably throw out one of the battleships, but it would be like Sophie's choice for me to do so.
Okay.
But I think it'd be Atlantico, Odin, and ZF6 as well. Go ahead.
Look at it this way. You can only take one DD. Which one of the 2 do you take?
Oh, that's so hard too. Yeah, I think it has to be ZF6 because ZF6 is more unique.
ZF6 is,
I like ZF6 a lot. You can't say anything. Nope.
I can only say that I would take ZF6 because it's the only one I've played. If you could only take one cruiser, which one would you take?
Ooh, good question. If I could only take one cruiser. Let me look. So what do we have? We have D7P, Anchorage, Puerto Rico, and Schroder. You know what's funny is all of these cruisers are kind of fine for me. None of them are must-haves. honestly. I mean, I really like D7P. It's probably D7P for me. I bet you most people would say Puerto Rico. What are you thinking?
The correct answer is Odin. If you could only take one battleship, which would you take?
Wait a minute. That's a battleship.
It's a cruiser. It's got small guns. It only has 50,000 hit points.
If I could get away with saying Odin, I agree with you, but I feel like you're.
It's our show. We
can
can say what we want.
If you can only take one battleship, I gotta say Odin for me.
If I could only take one battleship, it's Odin. If I could only take one cruiser, it's Puerto Rico. And if
You're
I could
gonna
only
go
take one DD, it would be ZF6 because it's the only one I've played.
It's the only one you've played. Yep. And ZF6 is just so great. It's easy to speak to its greatness. We both played it. It's great. When you can, we will talk about Lushun, but not until.
Sure.
Those are great questions to throw in there at the end. Okay, last slide is, we've been talking about the holiday season dockyard. What's it going to be? So what I've got on the screen here for us, guys, is a bunch of ships that are tiers 8, 9, and 10 that are announced, but we don't know exactly how they're going to be distributed. We've got Picardy. Let me bring this over here so I can see it. We've got Picardy. We've got Defense. You've got the Japanese battleship Tsurugi. You've got Kitakami. You've got the submarine U-4501. Carl the 14th Johann. Michelangelo, Monmouth, Navarine, Scarlet Thunder, and the newly announced Commissar. So I don't believe any of these have been announced in terms of how they're going to be distributed. So while it's possible that any of these could be the Dockyard, Skada, which ones do you think are most likely?
It's a fine line for me here because of some of them are already in active. Well, actually all these are in test. I think when we thought about this, it was
a 9, right?
I think we thought about, the comment in chat is correct from Gubario. Tsurugi is obviously the right choice because it's a tier 9 IJ battleship.
That's the joke that we've been making. It feels like it has to be Tsurugi, right?
Yeah, we made that joke to ourselves because we think the guy in charge of Dockyards is a Japanese battleship stan, and so he's like, nope, it's been a long time since we did one of those. We it's been since the spring. I don't know. I doubt it's going to be one of the 8s. The holiday Dockyard tends to be a tier 9. Sans Puerto Rico, right? Lately, it's been a tier 9, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe it hasn't always been. We'd have to look at those other slides.
I guess we can look at the list. So what do we have? Winter was Puerto Rico first, then it was Hizen, then it was Marlborough, then it was Schroder. So always a tier 9 with the exception of the first time out.
Right. So I think just generically you could take the 8s that are displayed here away. And I don't think they've announced any distribution methods for any of these ships. I think in speculation zone and stuff, how it works, I would guess that tier 9 IJN battleship is going to be a premium that comes out during the release of the new Japanese battleship line. So that's one I would want. I want to take that one off the table, except like maybe that battleship line comes out during the holiday season and they end up making this a Dockyard. So
I mean, I think if we're looking at the 9s, I'll just list them real quick. So it's Tsurugi, Michelangelo, Carl the 14th Johann, and Navarine. Oh, and Scarlet Thunder, right?
Right.
Michelangelo, for some reason, I think when I look at this, if I'm having to pick the ones I think it's going to be, because I think you're right about the Tsurugi. I feel like it's like Navarine, Michelangelo, or maybe Carl the 14th Johann. I don't know why I don't think it's going to be Scarlet Thunder. I just don't. And I can't speak to any reasons why. I don't know.
And it may not be any of these. We were trying to kind of think about these ships have all been announced or in testing, and the gestation period. When did Schroder get announced last year? When did and we kind of tried to look at it. It may not be any of these. I really don't think it's going to be the submarine. I think more than likely it's going to be a battleship or a cruiser because it always has been.
I don't think it's going to be the submarine either. Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be a tier 10. I don't think it's going to be Kitakami. I think we've never seen. Somebody mentioned in chat earlier we've never seen a Soviet ship in the Dockyard, so maybe it's time for that with the Navarine or the Commissar. That could be a possibility. I don't know.
I'd be really blown away if they did 2 tier 10s in a row, but but it's possible, right? I mean, you never know,
Yeah.
right? There's no facts about the
Yeah.
future. Navarine feels like it could be. It's sort of like supposed to be stealthy and sneak up on you and shoot you up close. Michelangelo's kind of got some secondary magic, which could be popular for a dockyard. I mean, remember that when they have a dockyard ship, they don't always do a great job of it, but I think they want to really encourage you. They want to tempt you to do it, right? Carl XIV Johann, if you take a look at the devblog articles, it's got torpedoes. They're like freaking Holland torpedoes or something. There's some pan-Euro torpedo that are freaking fast. So there's some really unique capabilities for those ships that make them, I think, really interesting picks. But who's to say whether or not any of these is the ship too? And I might have missed one. I feel like this is a pretty complete list, but it's tough. Sergeant Sully says it's Shinano. Shh, don't spoil it.
Yeah,
get out of here with your Shinano.
Looking at this list, I would say that Picardy, is that what it is? That one, that's
Picardy,
a tier 8,
Picardy.
right?
That's a tier 8. Yep.
But that's just a premium. Kitakame is.
I think that's going to be a real
or,
money premium.
That's going to be steel or research points. Kitakame. That submarine is. I bet that because we already have a steel submarine. That might be a coal submarine, or it might be research points.
Could be research points.
Tsurugi's going to be some kind of just purchase with money premium or something in a random bundle
from Japan, right? It's a
random bundle shenanigan
bundle ship. Yeah, maybe
defense. I bet is a coal boat. I love that you put Monmouth on here. That's just kind of an Easter egg.
That's
like
just
Monmouth was announced. How long ago was Monmouth announced? Like
I can find out.
Yeah, Monmouth I don't think is a real thing that ever comes out. Monmouth is a Gibraltar with HE. I don't think that ship ever comes out.
What's funny is it feels like they could come out with it if they wanted to, But
what tier is that? What tier's the Michelangelo?
Michelangelo's
is that a 9
9
or a 10?
It's a 9.
Yeah, yep. I don't know. Maybe that's a dockyard ship. I don't know. Carl Johan. It's a tier 9, so it's probably not a steel ship. It's probably I bet that's a research bureau ship. Navarine.
That if it's not dockyard, I think Carl's probably research bureau, just because it's so funky. Because research bureau ships are weird, right? They're all funky and weird.
I could see Navarine maybe being maybe that's a dockyard ship because it sounded different. Scarlet Thunder is going to be that's going to be like in crates or random bundles or something, because we've already seen there's like a wackadoo camo for that ship, and the picture you have of it there looks pretty normal.
Monmouth was announced on September 1st of 2022.
Yeah, Monmouth isn't real. That's just an Easter egg.
That's not happening.
Yeah, Scarlet Thunder's got that wacky camo. That's gonna be like a event ship, like maybe Halloween or something. That's gonna be some kind of event thing.
I don't think Scarlet Thunder looks interesting enough to put in a dockyard, but who knows? We'll see. Yeah. I mean, you read about it on the dev blog, and that doesn't tell you what it plays like, right? So it's tough.
And Commissar is like a hybrid. Doesn't that launch planes or something?
Commissar is a hybrid, which is pretty funky. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Russian hybrid cruiser at tier 10 that launches planes. That's probably going to be overpowered. That'll probably be steel or research points.
Mm-hmm. Sergeant Sully says, Vampire 2 is not funky or weird. It was a real ship, and it's stuck in RB. It's not funky or weird, but it is pretty powerful, right? So it's not as weird as some of the ships that are in there. But it's got an extra dose of power with those excellent hydros and the good stealth, that's for sure.
I think it'd be hilarious if Kitakame was the dockyard.
Wouldn't that be
ship.
weird?
Just
they did 2 10s in a row.
Hey guys, hope you like torpedoes in your torpedoes. We're just putting this out in the dockyard where everybody's going to get it. They certainly would sell a lot of them. They certainly would sell a lot. Because people want to buy that ship.
Brand says that's his
yeah. I don't know. It's fun to speculate.
Yeah,
but I think if you look at this page, it's probably a tier 9 battleship or cruiser that's going to be involved. Just because that's what we've seen.
Yeah. Before. If I was closing my eyes and picking one, maybe not closing my eyes, but if I was just picking one, I'm gonna guess like Navarine or Michelangelo. If it wasn't the new Japanese battleship, the Bungo Line wasn't coming, I'd probably throw Tsurugi in that list just cause.
God help me if they do that again.
I hope they don't, but
they're just like, you know what? We heard that you wanted some tier 9 Japanese battleships in your dockyard.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'd be fine with that if that was the end of the dockyard and halfway through the dockyard, everybody got Kitakame.
Halfway through, you get the boat everybody really wants. And then everybody pulls over and quits grinding the dockyard. Now, who
Yeah.
knows? Tsurugi could be really interesting. We'll find out what she is like later, at a later date when we know more about her. But for now, who's to say?
Even if it is interesting, I just don't do another tier 9 Japanese
Yeah, give us
battleship.
some flavor. Give
I
us a
don't
little
want
flavor.
that ship to exist no matter the distribution method. Give me a break.
Yeah, I
Like,
looked up the
it's too
Japanese Japanese tier 9 battleships. Daisen, Tsurugi, Musashi, Izumo, Aratara is the one from the Bungo line, Iwami, and Hizen. So it's 7 tier 9 battleships. Some of them tech line, of course, but it's a lot, right? And Tsurugi is the 7th here, and so that's pretty wild. Well, Skada, thanks for joining me to talk about not clan battleships, Dockyard ships. I appreciate it, man. This is always fun to do, and I know people really enjoy when we get together and kind of BS about this stuff, and
Thank you.
especially our contrasting opinions and things. So
Thank you for finally letting us do this one.
I love this
I wanted to do this one for a year, even though it's not anything anybody can really go buy. Like, it's just, I just wanted to randomly talk about dockyard ships. I think it's a fun topic, and the dockyard in general is something that touches everybody who plays the game in one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as we see what's coming up here in the winter dockyard, I think people are gonna have an eye on that, right? Obviously, we're working through a current dockyard right now with Lushun, and then we'll see what we're going to see here in the winter, and if that's something else that people are going to grind again, right? So we're doing this one. Today's date is 24th of August. It's 3.5 months, and we'll be looking at a winter dockyard probably at the beginning of December or late November. And so we'll see if we have the energy to do another marathon and get whatever ship that is, whether it's on this list over here or not. But again, dude, thanks for hanging out and doing this. We will head back to our stream. Guys, if you're watching this later on YouTube and you enjoyed the show, tell a friend. That's one of the best things you can do to help my little channel here. Obviously, let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think is the next dockyard ship? Which dockyard ships do you have, and which ones are your favorites? Definitely come hang out with us over at twitch.tv/ClydePlaysLive. That's where we do this live 3 times a week. And of course, we'd love to have you be a part of that show. If you're just going to hang out on YouTube, that's cool too. Maybe you would like to join our Discord. The link's down in the description of the video, and you can join us over there. And we keep the conversation going between produced videos on YouTube as well as the live streams. We've got a great little community of about 500 people there that talk about World of Warships every single day. And we'd love to have you come and join us and be a part of that. So with all of those things said, thank you a ton for watching Ship Show today. For myself and Skada, thank you very much for supporting the show in all the ways that you guys do. We will catch you in our next battle live stream or video. Until then, take care and just, be cool.